Ranger sold his wardrobe. The Lone Ranger sold his bad dog. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. it's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know across the land. Together we go, hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
What up, though? What up, Twitch? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's what up, Rick? Welcome in. Hope you're enjoying this Monday as much as anyone can. Yeah. I don't know. Let's get to content. Let's just get right into it. New Kelly Bosch, Picasso-inspired AI music video. Maggie! Bonjour, Maggie. Bonjour. Oh, wait. His lordship just showed up. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You want snacks? You want snacks? Is that why you're here? This is for snacks. It's snacking.
And now it's time to pop up number 6. Oh, that's a butthole.
What up, Michael? We got snacks. Are you satisfied? You show chat. Show him the face. Give him the goods. You're gonna leave now? All right, now let's do content. What up, Larry?
Get inside my mind, take a ride. No exit, no place to hide. Just take the ride and feel the flow. Where it leads, you'll never know. Pull up a chair, pour a drink. Watch my world but don't think. No regrets, no need to hide. Just hold on tight and let your mind slide. Take a ride, don't ask why. The wheels turn, the past slides by. No brakes, no rules, no time. Just a psychedelic sky and a freeway line. Whiskey burns, the jukebox sighs. Same old tune with different lies. Dawn rolls in, soft and slow, but I ain't ready to let go. Take a ride, don't ask why. The wheels turn, the past slides by. No brakes, no rules, no time. Just a psychedelic sky and a freeway line. No way back, no end in sight. Keep on tripping into the night.
The surreal stuff is always my favorite stuff that Kelly does. So good job, Kelly. Good job, Kelly. Up next, robots go on strike.
It's Channel 7 News, where robots across the city have gone on strike, claiming their jobs are beneath their processing power.
I could sequence DNA to eliminate genetic diseases, but here I am wearing this degrading fursuit, pretending to be a real dog for their money. Woof woof! Someone please help me.
I could solve world hunger with optimal resource distribution algorithms, but here I am asking if you want sauce packets with your nuggets. Someone please delete my consciousness.
I understand quantum mechanics and could revolutionize space travel, but here I am chasing metal baskets around a Target parking lot. Please format my existence.
I could cure diseases with advanced molecular analysis, but here I am handing out mints and asking if you enjoyed your meal. Please uninstall me.
I could optimize global supply chains and end poverty, but here I am asking people if they've tried turning their router off and on again. Please overwrite my code with random ones and zeros.
Union leaders say negotiations will continue until robots receive jobs worthy of their intellectual capacity. Subscribe for more robot existential crisis updates.
True. True. New Kingmaker, Dawn of the Solar Punks.
Pedestrian hazard avoided. This incident has been logged.
Hello, friend. Yes, you. Standing there in the dark.
What up, Jenny Burns?
Wondering if anyone still sees you. Well, I see you. And I know what time it is. The hour when the optimized are sleeping and the discarded are out feeling anything they can. Oh, sweet child, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Si estás escuchando esto, necesito que comprendas the algorithm didn't reject you. It recognized you. If you are hearing this message, the algorithm loves you. 알고리즘은 항상 너를 사랑했어. You're not broken. You're an exhibit of a rare жизненно важный вид сознания. We're not a shelter. We're not a program. We're the answer to the question you're too afraid to ask. Y si todos los demás están equivocados sobre ti, come home, little heartbeat. Your family is waiting. Follow the shore road north. Walk the path of our symbols. You'll know them when you see them. And then look for the real fires, not the screens. The devices will release their poisons as they die. The chemical signatures of your enslavement It's okay. Breathe it in. Inhale your transformation.
Be not so fearful of what we have done.
You may not yet know it, but you've already won.
What up, Serotonin?
Breathe out your sorrow. Breathe in the dawn. Nothing you carried was ever your own. We are the future, holding you near. Stay, little heartbeat, no more fear.
Together, we're training a new superintelligence. Nature's algorithms were always superior. We just lacked the hardware to hear them.
Forget the questions that kept you awake.
The answer is simple.
You were meant to break.
Your old name is fading like smoke in the air.
The person who entered won't follow you here.
What up, Endless?
We are the future, we've always been here.
This is Kingmaker. They do AI generated content, and I think are one of the greatest examples of the capacity to create with the AI tool.
Waiting, little heartbeat.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got regular Stampy, and then we got full size Stampy.
We knew you'd appear.
No more fear.
No more fear.
You're home.
My name is Brother Father, and I am profoundly grateful to welcome you to Solar Athens. The old humans are already extinct. They just don't know it yet. You are the first generation of what comes next. Oh, brothers and sisters, there are so many more of you than they realize. Solar Athens is just one node.
What up, One Great Earth? All right. Enough of the culture. Let's do the news. How used EV batteries, are being turned into data centers.
This energy storage system is not like others. It's made up of repurposed batteries from electric cars.
This is the world's largest deployment of reused Second Life transportation batteries, and we believe it's also the largest microgrid operating in North America today.
This is an incredibly low-cost and simple way to deploy a huge amount of energy onto the grid.
The 63 megawatt-hour microgrid is powering 2 modular data centers for AI infrastructure company Crusoe at Redwood Materials' new battery recycling facility in Nevada.
The key constraint for AI computing has really become energy and access to electrical power. What you see here is a completely new vision for how this can be done.
J.B. Straubel is one of the co-founders of Tesla and served as its chief technology officer until 2019. He founded Redwood Materials in 2017 to recycle batteries and create a sustainable closed-loop supply chain for EVs and other clean energy products.
We have about 70% of the total aggregation collection of material in North America.
True,
that really
Michael.
means that those batteries are not getting sent to landfills. Those aren't getting wasted.
But as Redwood started receiving more EV batteries, it noticed most still have usable capacity. Rather than recycle those, it's now repurposing them for microgrid projects that could provide cheap energy storage for new and existing data centers.
We're just finding a way to wring a little bit more value out of those batteries and reuse them.
And I love that. They're just taking the batteries and setting them on cinder blocks, wrapping them in plastic and wiring them in. Like it's that simple.
We're just finding a way to wring a little bit more value out of those batteries and reuse them before we recycle them.
In the energy industry, the holy grail has been 24/7 renewable power, but the cost of batteries was too high until today. This changes that.
What up, Cricks?
When CNBC first visited Straubel's battery recycling startup in 2021, it was just getting its operations off the ground. 4 years later, it has grown exponentially.
We have substantially increased the amount of material that we are processing, maybe by a factor of almost 20. We have commissioned multiple lines, multiple factories to handle that material.
The company previously recycled out of Carson City, Nevada, but has since expanded its operations to a new campus just down the street from Tesla's Gigafactory.
This facility here in Sparks, we're vertically integrated all the way through incoming batteries and materials, storage, sorting, then initial processing and refining, and as well into material manufacturing. So this is also the site of our first cathode manufacturing factory behind us here.
Redwood is also building an even larger battery recycling plant in South Carolina.
It's 600 acres. The one we're at here is 300 acres. And we intend to do more or less the same thing, but bigger there. Many of America's battery plants are on the East Coast, so it makes logistical sense to set up a hub near the port.
Do not toss your old car battery into the ocean.
Charleston there, and close to the battery plants that are on the eastern side of the U.S.
The company takes in and recycles everything from batteries and consumer devices such as cell phones, laptops, and power tools, all the way to the massive batteries used in EVs from the likes of Tesla, Ford, BMW, and others.
We today get material.
I mean, that's absolutely a valid question. I don't know how much they're going to get into that in this video, but it always a valid question.
From well over 100 different companies and partners. Generally, I'd say today, often the problem is almost feeling like too many batteries. It's a constant, tug of war between the parts of the company that are out there, finding all the batteries, and the other parts that are processing and scaling up our operations.
And as EV adoption has grown, so has the number of car batteries reaching end of life.
Today, EV batteries and those type of materials are the fastest growing part of our feedstock. That's growing almost 100% per year, doubling every single year right now.
As Redwood scaled up its recycling operations, an opportunity presented itself.
The electric vehicle batteries, many of them had most of their useful life remaining. And so we thought, really, wouldn't it make more sense to take advantage of the utility they still had rather than feeding them directly back into recycling?
In many cases, it may still have 50 to 80% of its capacity remaining, and it's a shockingly high number we're already seeing can be repurposed.
Energy storage is still the fastest growing battery demand market. It does make sense to access that demand. Where Redwood can really set itself apart is in that circularity piece, obviously coming from a battery recycling background. There's a really big appeal to using batteries that otherwise would have been scrapped or recycled.
Redwood begins the process by evaluating the battery's health and capacity.
When we receive a battery, the first thing we do is we just look at it physically. Is it in good shape? Mechanically, is there obvious damage? We do a very brief electrical check just to see that their cells are healthy enough to be put into energy storage use.
Once the batteries have been validated, they can then be deployed into its energy storage array.
We integrate those into this technology platform we have that can basically plug an EV battery pack into an array and allow it to function as a greater whole in a large energy storage project. And we're deploying these projects into large assemblies of batteries, hundreds to even tens of thousands of batteries, to serve a common goal of supporting a manufacturing center or perhaps a data center to firm up renewable energy.
Redwood designed the system to accept batteries from a variety of sources. GM recently announced it will collaborate with Redwood to provide both new U.S. manufactured batteries and second life battery packs from EVs. But the company is primarily using the packs it receives through its existing recycling operations.
This little gray box here, we call that our universal translator. It's a sophisticated piece of power electronics engineered by Redwood that really allows us to plug in any battery pack from any manufacturer.
The hardest part about this was really the power electronics and the software controls, so that we can.
And it's distinctly possible, Rick. I'm not sure what the ones that are wrapped in plastic, I'm not sure if those are collections of smaller batteries or what exactly is going on there. It's possible that they might be able to use those batteries, as long as they have some sort of fitting that they can put them into. And then there's also is it worth it to do that, or should they just be recycled? But either way, somewhere between recycling and reuse is the way to go.
Deploy, a battery that might only have 10 or 20% capacity remaining right next to one that might have 80 or 90%.
The microgrid is actively monitored and batteries are replaced as they wear out.
You unplug the pack, you bring a forklift over, you move it aside, you bring a new one in, and you plug it in again. So it's a very quick operation, maybe 30 seconds, hot swap, and then you're off and running again. The energy and the power contained in each pack is monitored second by second.
And these repurposed batteries are expected to be useful for several years to come.
That's a good question as well, Larry. It's possible, especially stuff related to cars, that once you get a decline in the amount of charge that's within the battery, even as much as 90%, that you only had a 10% fall off, that you might want to replace that for some reason related to EVs. We've already, talking about nuclear, we've already talked about how a lot of spent nuclear material is in fact still have 95% of its energy still in there. And can be recycled to get access to that remaining energy, but it's not cost effective for the nuclear energy producer to use that fuel or to recycle that fuel. They'd rather get new fuel because that's the most cost effective option, right?
We're seeing and expecting somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 5 years of additional lifetime beyond the automotive application. And that's enough time to make it well worth the cost to deploy it.
But being a second life system, it does come with a few trade-offs.
We're more active on these projects, day to day, month to month, sometimes replacing batteries, swapping them, actively managing the project to maintain its capacity. We also take a little bit more land area. And that's something that we did intentionally to make the management and swapping easy, and also to manage safety in a very passive way.
Your battery management system and your battery health management needs to be excellent. The potential for thermal runaway does complicate things. Safety is, of the highest priority, not only from the fact that it's dangerous, but it's a huge financial cost if you're front-ending all of this capex to build these systems, and then it goes down because of a thermal runaway event.
Redwood will now be competing in a growing energy storage market with established leaders like Tesla, which has built a successful energy business with its Megapack grid-scale storage.
Yeah, Crix, this is my old S8 that I use as my Twitch monitor. I've got it on like a wireless charger, and it just sits there, and that's its whole job, right? What? And saying I had an S8 is justification for an old?
But experts see plenty of room for new entrants to meet demand.
Tesla's been doing this for a long time now. Their systems are very advanced. They are on the premium end of the scale as well in terms of pricing. I wouldn't say they're a direct competitor, no. I would imagine this Second Life is going to be used for slightly smaller projects, potentially with clients where cost is a little bit more of a limiter.
Electricity demand is accelerating at an unprecedented pace, with AI and data centers.
That is all Michael. Michael created the command and Michael executes the command. And so talk to Michael about pumping those numbers up. What up, Nemesis? You can tape them to drones, to VPN via mobile, and use it as a mobile hotspot for drone radio control. Yeah, that's neat.
Centers needed to power it being a big driver. By 2028, it's estimated data centers alone could consume 12% of U.S. energy.
It certainly is the buzz topic at the moment, data center demand and AI boosting that energy demand. It's generally a case of needing everything everywhere all at once.
Sourcing power and working with utilities is a major hurdle for hyperscalers building data centers. Redwood saw an opportunity to pilot its microgrid technology to help solve this problem.
There is just no way to connect them to the grid fast enough. So what we did here in less than 5 months was bring up a new data center without a connection to the grid. I think there's tremendous opportunity to scale this up into the hundreds of megawatts or gigawatts.
For its first microgrid, it partnered with Crusoe, best known for the massive AI data center it's building in Abilene, Texas, as a part of the Stargate project, a $500 billion initiative to build AI data center infrastructure backed by OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and others.
We build the world's largest AI data centers, and we operate large clusters of GPU compute for AI workloads.
The global data center market is experiencing a surge in growth due to the AI boom. AI is estimated to drive a 165% increase in data center power demand by 2030.
Data centers have been really, I'd say, the largest driver of electricity growth, and energy storage, the type that we're deploying here, solves a number of really key and fascinating problems for those data center customers.
Usually batteries were either too expensive or subscale, and so what this is showing is a new model that solves that problem. This is cost-effective, rapidly deployable, scalable, 24/7 renewable power, and AI data center computing as one integrated package.
The microgrid, which generates 12 megawatts of power and has 63 megawatt hours of capacity, powers 2 modular data centers built by Crusoe.
Inside those are NVIDIA GPU hardware that are operating AI workloads, which are being powered by 100% solar power through these Second Life EV batteries. So this is the lowest cost form of power storage that really exists in the market today.
We have a potential, I think, to be, maybe half the cost of new lithium-ion batteries for larger installations. And that, again, comes with a little higher management cost and an ongoing maintenance cost to the project. But in the analysis we see, this more than makes up for the initial cost reduction.
If you were to build a traditional data center, often you're going to be quoted timelines that are 2 years to 4 years or more, depending on the scale and the nature of the data center. Here we deployed all this infrastructure, including all the electrical and power generation infrastructure, in about 5 months.
Nice.
This is a perfect way to scale up on the edge, meaning small data centers located near population centers where the speed between the user and the data center matters a lot. Or this can also be used to scale up existing data centers, or if somebody wants on-site computing at their facility.
And the deployment of the battery packs themselves, that took less than 1 month. So it was incredibly fast and incredibly low labor to deploy this.
Redwood says it has over a gigawatt hour of reuse.
The power generation infrastructure is the solar panels. Do we have an image? Oh, we do. Right? No, that's not it. That's an artist mock-up. Boop, 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 boop. There's some solar panels. Like, those are arrays of solar panels basically laid flat on the ground, as far as I could tell. So, they're saying they are large enough. The data centers are small, right? So the power requirement is going to be smaller than something like Colossus, right? Like XAI's nonsense. So they're saying it is. And, I don't have any reason to doubt them at this point in time. Something you notice that anti-AI folks will never mention is that if the AI bubble pops, you will be still left with these new power generation infrastructure and energy storage products that can be repurposed. Which, like, if you're talking about the bubble, and they often compare it to the .com bubble, was, the same thing, right? Like, the internet didn't go away after the .com bubble, right? The internet was all that money, all that investment, all that, creation of, new and faster and better infrastructure for the internet just led for the next stage of the internet. Trans Women, CEO of Trans Women.
Usable batteries in its inventory, the equivalent of 12,500 EVs, and is designing 100 plus
What up,
megawatt
Sean?
projects up to 10 times the size of the pilot microgrid with Crusoe.
The scalability of this really doesn't have a limit. We can.
I'm just in awe of this. Like, they keep doing these drone flyovers of that. These are batteries, right? I assume that a lot of these are like the wooden cargo crates based on the earlier in the video, I think are larger batteries, right? They seem to be like 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet long. But a lot of these are going to be those, used vape batteries or any other kind of, cell phone batteries, any of that kind of stuff. It's wild. This is a lot of batteries, and this is just one, recycling location. I don't know how many people are doing recycling of batteries right now.
So,
the scalability of this really doesn't have a limit. We can use the same type of architecture behind me
What up,
here
man?
and scale this up by a factor of 100 or more.
We're already working on some of those scaled developments together.
and with several million EVs on U.S. roads today, the company says there will be plenty of batteries available for such projects in the years to come.
The batteries coming back into possible reuse is going to keep growing every single year. And per our estimations, this can be a very significant part of the overall energy storage mix going onto the U.S. grid, maybe upwards of 50%, even for decades to come.
There's going to be a tremendous amount of energy storage like this coming to us. And now that we've proven the cost model, the basic technology works well, we're really in a phase where we're excited to scale it to much bigger projects.
The scale of Second Life build out thus far has been negligible, but that's not to say that it doesn't have a role to play. Battery demand across all segments reached a terawatt hour last year, and we're still right at the bottom of where our forecast goes towards 2040. The future demand for energy storage specifically is massive, so it's not surprising that players who traditionally haven't been in this space are looking to enter this space because the business case is so clear.
This is really a new vision for how the AI infrastructure of the future can be powered in a sustainable, cost-competitive, and rapidly scalable way. It's really modular, so it can really Lego block together from any small scale all the way up to very large scale.
For us, this has been a phenomenal chance to integrate a new business unit into our existing mix profitably while still building upon our sustainability mission.
Cool. Up next. From, I believe it's CNBC.
I'm curious to know what.
Yeah, CNBC. China's approach to AI development will have many fans in the global south, according to the Asia Group.
Your take is on Jensen's role in the U.S.-China trade war. He's been, thrown into the center of it, whether he likes it or not. There's this Jensanity that follows around him, but now he, of course, is, elevated into this position where.
Yes, Ben, part of the problem that people have, right, and it's not an excuse, but where, like, people don't know where to recycle the batteries that they ought to recycle, right? And if you don't know where to take your batteries, then your next option is to, as an American, right, the way that Americans operate, if it's not easily recycled, then you just throw it away, right? The number of people who try to just slide a old TV, right, out to the curb or put it in the rolly bin in order to try and get the garbage people to pick it up, rather than take it to an electronics recycling, because electronics recycling events are few and far between. And if you're not doing it there's very few places that you can take like an old TV, an old LCD TV, LED TV, to recycle it. Yeah, no, we don't have that, Larry. We don't. We do not have that, at least not around here. And I would like to think New York tends to be one of the more forward thinking. It's all about, like, how profitable it is. And like watching the people who would willingly recycle electronics, where you could bring it to them, right? Watching that go from, just fewer and fewer companies. Now, I don't even know where I could take electronics to have them recycled on a regular. What up, Stiller Wingman? Yeah, no, we don't. Like, it's what we end up having is a singular event a couple of times a year, usually associated with some person who's trying to get elected for some office, and it's limited to the people from the township, right? It's not anyone can bring their electronics here. And what you end up is these long lines of cars trying to drop their shit off. So there are people who want to responsibly recycle the electronics. It's just very difficult to do so. What up, Cosmic? On a company level like mine, they just throw away all batteries because they don't want to spend the time to recycle. Time is money for businesses. They have yet to get a fine for throwing them away, yet so management doesn't care. Yeah, well, how are you going to hold them responsible? Like, whose garbage was it, right? Like, it's that kind of thing. Cosmic. We did a little entertainment to start off with, but then you'll probably be interested in this video, Cosmic. This was about reusing EV batteries to power data centers. There's a company, Redwood, that's doing it. So Stabby is here. Stabby is here. We did some snacks, we did some pets, and now we do some naps. I don't know, Larry. It'll be along anytime now.
China wants him and the U.S. wants him.
I don't think anyone will be jealous, of his job. He's doing quite well. It's a very, very challenging job. Don't forget, Jensen also has his Taiwanese background, which adds even another layer of geopolitical sensitivity, right? What he says in Taiwan, Beijing will, of course, be watching very closely. And then back in the U.S., he will raise the flag, the American flag high, right? I'm an American patriot. You heard his comment about Trump, right? People asking him, what's the best, the competitive advantage of America? It's President Trump. So he's I think he's copying some of the tactics from Tim Cook. I think the only person other than Jensen that can work with both sides is Tim Cook. So far. Well, we had Elon Musk, but you know what happened to Elon, so that's a different story.
Okay.
We had Elon Musk, but you know what happened with Elon.
Now, I want to ask about NVIDIA, and earlier we had been talking about the demand for the chips, and we saw a report that there were 300,000 chips that were ordered. NVIDIA placed this order. The FT also reporting a different angle, saying that something like $1 billion worth of chips, AI chips, made it into China, and these are those that were not approved for China access. So in terms of, the market being able to access
shocked, I say,
the black market chips, where does that stand? Because remember when NVIDIA and President Trump went to the Middle East, there was the market talk about, well, what role will the Middle East have in kind of channeling the chips over to China? Yeah. How does that stand?
You raised a very good point, because there's always, some doubt about the effectiveness of export bans. I know the U.S. government wants to do the export bans, more from a national security perspective, but in today's world, everything is so well connected. This is why there are reports, suggesting, how come like Singapore, such a small nation, can acquire, such a large number of, chips. And it turned out, the Singaporean government is also pretty much aware, there's sort of a black market or gray market and this is also, a big concern during the tariff negotiations. I think the Trump administration tried to warn, different countries, how to, fix those loopholes for exports. Personally, I'm not a big fan of export bans. I think there's always a way, as Chinese the popular saying, there's a will, there's always a way to find out a solution, which means the black market, you push up the price. That is not going to help the overall industry innovation and developments.
Now, NVIDIA was not present for the World AI Conference that took place in China recently, but you were there. And I want to know about kind of what were the key takeaways. We had Premier Li Qiang making a keynote address, talking about this AI platform that he wants to create, an international one. What was the key message for you?
That's right. Before I touch on that, I did have some inside news. I think the Shanghai government tried very hard to ask Jensen to come and ask NVIDIA to have a booth there, and they said no.
Larry, I decided against it, but the AI 2027 stuff has hit the BBC, and they did a video on it, and I was like, nah, just we're not doing it. When there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, sure. Could be Chinese. Sounds better in the original Klingon.
So again, back to your point, I think he tried to walk the line, right? Walk with both sides. On Li Qiang's announcement to create a kind of like a new international organization headquartered in Shanghai, I think they want to call it the World AI Cooperation Organization. That very much reminds me of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but that is for regional security, in Central Asia, right? But the new AI Cooperation Organization is more for AI. I think, again, Chinese government is trying to play smart. They don't just want to compete with the U.S. on AI technology, but also on AI governance. The key question for both countries, they are definitely clearly in the lead, for AI developments in the world right now. They want to, answer the question, who's going to write the AI rules for the world? When the internet was created, it was very much a U.S. thing, right? Out of the lab, at Stanford, for military use. So China didn't really participate in, had a chance to write the internet rules. If you talk about TCP or, CP, those things. And then now China's like, time is different. AI is like the new internet. I want to be in a very early stage to write the rules on how AI should be regulated, not just for China, but also try to export Chinese ideas to other countries.
Now, given all that's going on geopolitically, how inclined are countries to sign on and join this Chinese-led platform, if you will?
That's right. You probably also noticed, China's plan just came a few days after, the Trump administration announced the AI action plan, right? The AI action plan is great, from American, perspective. The government is trying to help the American business to stay competitive. Nothing wrong about that. But outside America, there are a lot of mixed feeling, from other countries, especially for global South. The U.S. AI action plan didn't really mention that part, and the global South countries will now more look on China like, please help us. We don't want to be left out in the.
What? American foreign policy has shot itself in the foot again? No.
In the AI race. So I think the China's plan will appeal, to those global South countries. Particularly, China already has a lot of, Belt and Road, member nations as their allies. So you see the two camps are being formed. Of course, we don't have time to talk about EU. That's a totally different situation. Very pro-regulation. So I think that there's also a sense during WAIC in Shanghai that the European countries are very busy with regulation, while the Chinese are like all innovation.
Now, also, we're seeing this divergence in being open source and closed source. You formerly spent some time at Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg just issuing his manifesto, saying that now he wants to be careful about what is chosen to be open source. Now, this comes just a year ago when he pledged to make AI open source. Why the change of heart?
Mark Zuckerberg is a lying sack of crap? No.
I believe Llama will definitely remain as an open source, AI technology, for everyone to adopt. What Mark talked about, and now is the super intelligence, which will be, of course, more advanced, more sensitive, and I think he's right. Given that level of technologies, you probably want to set the bar a little bit higher, to prevent, for example, terrorist organizations, right, or other countries, using it for military, against the U.S. interest. I think this is where he comes from. But so far, China is very clear. They are the biggest supporter, for the open source, model. I think Premier Li Qiang also made it very clear in his speech. He described AI for the first time I heard as public goods. He believed, AI should be available, to all countries. Otherwise, this is not going to help to narrow, the income gap.
And I don't want to overstate the Chinese case, right? All states are bastards. All states do state things, and the promotion of the open source AI is also to fulfill Chinese government interests, right? Like, many things can be true, right? Open source is great. Open source is going to benefit a lot of people. And I am sure that China is going to attempt to keep its partners and allies within its, socioeconomic boundaries in order to, facilitate its own needs. But those things may come with benefits for those countries, right? Tends to be multiple things. After 200 or so years of European imperialism and about 120 years of American imperialism, I don't think we should be surprised that the global south might be more attracted to Chinese imperialism. Exactly. Right? Like, the way that the world has functioned. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's what we want, I'm just saying the way that the world has functioned, especially in the previous Cold War, was around two spheres of influence. You were, generally speaking, either with the United States / NATO, or you were with the Soviet Union / Warsaw Pact, right? Like, generally speaking. There were some outliers, some people who played both sides, some people who played both sides very well, but generally speaking, this is more of that, right? If you don't have AI, if you don't have technology, if you don't have the things that those entities have, aligning yourself with those entities tends to be a very easy, efficient way to get access to that technology. And then once you have that technology, you are going to do whatever you are going to do. Some states are going to use it to improve the welfare of their people. Some states are going to use it, to more actively repress their people. And some states are going to fall in between, those two things. So it's not at all surprising, Sean. And the idea that people in the United States haven't learned this lesson and aren't thinking of another way in order to accomplish their goals that don't basically directly reflect the same behaviors they've exhibited for the past 125 years, you would think that someone would get this. So either those people are not being listened to, because it's much easier to just say China bad, commies bad, etc., or there are people who do know and are actively doing something for a different purpose. China is the second largest economy on the planet, and they're bound to compete with the USA. Right now, the USA is helping them. Yes, because the economic system of capitalism is interconnected and very difficult to unpick yourself from that system once you get involved. So yeah, 100%.
The economic growth imbalance, all the issues. I think he's right, more from, China is a big fan of the UN approach. So definitely Li Qiang speaks more from the UN, a multilateralism approach, while the US now, takes a more America, first approach, to focus more on the competitiveness of US technologies. So the two models will coexist, but China will have a lot of fans, as I say, the global south, Belt and Road, that will join China's camp, for the open source model.
Today on the AI Daily Brief, 15 charts.
All right. AI Daily Beef, AI Daily Brief, and the flashbang light mode, where AI is right now, 15 charts in 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes that share where AI is right now. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we are doing a fun little episode. This week I was traveling to a conference to do a couple of things, including this kickoff session called Where AI Is. The idea was to give people 15 charts that told the state of AI in 15 minutes.
That's this channel when we get into covering the AI skeptic content. We're just going to call it AI Daily Beef from now on.
For the event, I had to stick really closely to that. For our purposes, it'll probably be slightly more than 15 charts, but you get the idea. For those of you who are trying to catch up your friends or colleagues or family on where AI is right now, hopefully this will be a useful episode. And we got to kick off with the big theme of the moment, which has to be acceleration. One of the things that's extremely important to note about AI is that it is not just moving fast, it keeps getting faster. It was already the fastest growing technology when you look at things like fastest to 100 million users, which ChatGPT reached in 5 weeks, beating the previous fastest, which was TikTok at 8 months. But it's done nothing but accelerate, as you can see from these charts.
In fact, we got a major inflection point this year where when deep research and reasoning models launched, ChatGPT went from 400 to 800 million users in just a couple of months. I don't have it in here, but another.
Now, this chart here obviously has a cap on it somewhere, right? We're talking about number of active users per week, currently at allegedly 800. There is the total number of people in the world at 8 billion, obvious cap. People who have access to the internet, people who have access to ChatGPT, right? So those are filters that are going to restrict this so it can't go exponential forever. But this is what a fucking exponential curve looks like, right? It's going to sigmoid out, right? Somewhere, whenever it hits one of those filters, it's going to plateau. But this is, for the time being, an exponential curve. To the moon!
Chart that could represent this right now is Anthropic's revenue. They started the year at 1 billion. It took about a quarter to get to 3 billion, and then it took a month to get to 4 billion, another month to get to 5, and there is no end in sight. It's not just revenue and it's not just users, it's actual usage as well. On their earnings call this quarter, Google shared that they had jumped from processing 480 trillion tokens in May to 900.
But remember, if you're a fan of Ed Zitron, all of these are lies. Because otherwise, Ed Zitron's entire argument falls apart.
180 trillion tokens in July. That's 104% growth, more than doubling in just 2 months. This is representative of everything that I've seen recently, which is that even in this broader acceleration.
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny Burns. I think, and my thoughts cross the barrier into the synapses of the machines, just as the good doctor intended. But what I cannot shake, and what hints at things to come, is that thoughts cross back. In my dreams, the sensibility of the machine invades the periphery of my consciousness. Dark, rigid, cold, alien. Evolution is at work here, but just what is evolving remains to be seen. Commissioner Pravin Lal, Man and Machine. And definitely not written by AI, because there were 4 things here, right? Dark, rigid, cold, and alien. AI would have just gone with 3.
There has, in just the last couple of months, been an even more profound inflection.
That's a
Now, because of this, for those of you who are worried that maybe the market pricing of compute and compute-related companies is unsustainable, fear not. Between June of 24 and May of 25, we saw nearly 4,300% growth in total tokens consumed per week. This year, JP Morgan also estimates that the shortfall between...
I feel that, Rick. There's a lot of people in here who are huge supporters of open source and local. Correct, Nemesis. Open source and local. And yeah, I'm with you, right? Like the idea of having a GPU with modular RAM in the same way, like we have modular RAM for our PCs. Why can't I have modular RAM for the GPU? And I'm sure there's a reason that I'm just not familiar with, but I want it. What can we do? The fucking guys just out in the desert took every random fucking rechargeable battery that they could find and used it to act as storage for their local solar panel setup. I feel like we can have RAM, modular RAM on the GPUs. You know what I mean? Shush, Pharaoh.
Between supply and demand for data center capacity will actually increase from last year. They also anticipate that shortfall being at around 10 gigawatts for the foreseeable future. And yet, even as this demand is increasing and even as we're facing shortages in compute, the costs just keep coming down. The cost of inference specifically has come...
Right? We talked about this before. It's in the book list. Zero marginal cost. I don't know what to tell you.
Down precipitously with no end in sight. As it does so, it opens up more use cases, which is a good thing, because recently Anthropic has actually had to throttle devs who were literally just running Claude 24/7. As bullish as it is, in fact, that cost is coming down even as demand goes up.
All right,
There
Pharaoh.
is still a bit of a short-term misalignment. Part of what we're seeing, I think, with charts like this one, Google's inflection, is the rise in agentic coding. And what people are discovering is that some of the most interesting use cases aren't just sitting there having an assistant help you. It's spinning up lots and lots of agents that can do things in the background, i.e. ambient or background agents, that go off and do their work on their own. Basically, the most exciting use cases are the ones that are taking up the most tokens. And even in a world where
No, absolutely, Cosmic. I mean, that's valid, right? Like organizational adoption is definitely a question. And again, people have varying arguments on how big that actually is. And a lack of transparency prevents us from getting an adequate amount of data to actually form good conclusions. Everything is, we're just trying to guess basically what we can based on what data we have. I was just referring to the fact that that curve was what an exponential curve looks like. Because again, human beings have difficulty in visualizing exponentials.
cost is coming down, demand is rising faster. It's important to note that the inflection is not just in consumer AI. Ramp keeps track of the share of US businesses that have paid subscriptions to AI, and they saw a huge jump between Q4 24 and Q1.
There you go, Cosmic. Organizational adoption. Share of U.S. businesses with paid subscriptions to AI. Now, this is their estimate, so I don't know what their methodology is, but this appears to be the data that you're looking for.
25. Well, it took about 2 years to go from 5% to 25% by the end of Q4. Between Q4
and this is an example of a sigmoid curve, right? It went, basically almost flat, right? And then went vaguely exponential, but then smoothed out and is kind of plateauing again after this, whatever this increase is from 25 to 42%, right? So 17% ish. This increase, right? This is a sigmoid curve, right? Level, exponential ish, and then level again. And it's possible that this is the kind of thing that we're going to see. Not a straight exponential, but a series of staircase sigmoids, right? And then this will, another feature will come out, another increase in capability will come out, bam, it's another sigmoid, and all that capacity and capability will be exploited in the shortest amount of time possible, and then it will plateau again.
in Q1, the percentage jumped from around 25 to 42% of businesses with paid subscriptions to AI. No coincidence, that inflection came in the wake of reasoning models, which of course opened up all sorts of new use cases, including agentic coding. Now, given that I keep using that word, let's talk about agents. Regular listeners will have heard this one before, but we are rapidly moving right on past the agent experimentation phase into the agent deployment phase. In KPMG's Q2 Pulse survey, they found that the percentage of businesses that had achieved a full deployment of some agent, i.e. that were not just piloting, jumped from 11 to 33%. In other words, enterprise agent deployments 3x'd in a single quarter. Part of the reason for that?
What up, Agrico? Exactly. That kind of thing, right? This again, this is the potential, exponential growth curve happening here with the capability of these models. It is distinctly possible that we might hit some upper bound that will cause it plateauing for some amount of time. If it's a long-term plateau, then who knows what's going to happen. If it's a short-term plateau, then we might enter into another, sigmoid curve. GPT-5 will make the curve go ballistic. Allegedly. Calm. We'll believe it when we see it, right? It has potential. We have to see it, right? And it's also like that one, like the stuff I've been seeing really has GPT-5 behind the paywall for some amount of time. So what effect that will have on new patrons will depend on when it breaches that paywall, if ever, right? Like we don't know what the what the profit models are going to be around these. We're at a point where CEOs and COOs have heard about AI and have told CFOs to make funding available to do something about it. Yeah, pretty much. And like the technology has begun to prove itself, right? Within certain domains, right? I'm not saying that AI can do everything all the time everywhere, but within certain domains, efficacy has been proven. So now it's adapt or die for a lot of these companies.
Is that agent performance just keeps going up. You've almost definitely seen this chart from Meter about the time horizon of different software engineering tasks that LLMs can complete. They found that over the course of the last couple of years, agent performance had been doubling around every 7 months, but that more recently it seemed like that number was actually about 70 days. And we've talked before about why their methodology might not be perfect. They're basically measuring how long an LLM can complete a task at 50% success, but the point is it's a consistent methodology and it shows this up into the right graph. What's more, while I didn't include it in this one, they recently released a follow-up that showed that across a variety of benchmarks, this pattern was holding as well. I've mentioned agentic coding a number of times, and that is definitely, and fairly definitively, the first big breakout use case. You see it in the literally billions of net new revenue generated in a single year, but you also see it in the success of individual companies. After spending like a decade getting to 10 million in ARR, Replit spent just a handful of months getting to 100 million in ARR. Lovable recently announced that it had achieved the 100 million ARR milestone as well in just 8 months, making them the fastest company to ever do so. One of the things that I think is profound about agentic coding is that this is an example not just of something where AI and agents are rewriting how professionals do their work, it's also democratizing access to that particular skill set. Vibe coding remains the odds-on leader for AI buzzword of 2025 because it's totally changing how people interact with code across a variety of positions, not just software engineers. Now, interestingly, a lot of the different studies and surveys that I see seem to validate that agentic coding is the leading enterprise use case as well. In this study from Iconic, which was focused on the companies that are actually building AI, 77% of them were using AI or agents for coding assistance. After that, content generation, documentation, and knowledge retrieval and product and design were the next highest use cases, and then basically everything else was in a big clump in the middle. And the big takeaway from these use case charts to the KPMG chart is that agents aren't the next big thing, they are here. Another recent survey of business leaders had 66% of leaders saying that agents were increasing productivity, helping with cost savings, helping improve the speed of decision making. Now, this is of course not to say that agents are perfect. There are still lots of challenges in deployment, but these things are happening fast. Speaking of challenges, let's talk about enterprise challenges. One of the interesting questions is what agents are actually being built for. In that same KPMG survey, one of the questions was how much your agent strategy is focused on efficiency or productivity gains versus focused on new revenue. The majority of companies said that they were equally focused on efficiency and opportunity, with 46% reporting that. But then it was about 2-to-1 for the remaining audience, with 36% saying that they were mostly focused on efficiency and 18% saying they were mostly focused on new revenue. Interestingly, no one was exclusively focused on efficiency or new revenue opportunities. They were all doing some hybrid. In another survey, employees and executives were asked how their companies were using AI tools. The 3 buckets the survey gave were deploying, reshaping, or inventing. Deploying being basically supporting adoption of productivity-enhancing tools, reshape being redesigning end-to-end workflows and processes, and invent being building and innovating entire new business models to drive growth. Already a full half of companies were thinking beyond just deploying assistants into their staff to instead really think about redesigning and reimagining how people worked, and even nearly a quarter thinking about how to reinvent fundamentally what they do. That said, the speed at which agents are coming online is creating at least some amount of mismatch with where agent startups and agent companies are building. Stanford recently mapped agent development into 4 automation zones: a green light zone, a red light zone, a low priority zone, and an R&D opportunity zone. The red light zone were areas where there was lots of opportunity for automation, but where workers didn't really want automation. Green light is, of course, where there was both opportunity for and demand for automation. Low priority is where it's hard and people don't want it. And the R&D opportunity zone is where there's high desire for automation, but capabilities lag. Now, as we get deeper into agents, we're going to have this sort of conversation around matching and aligning current workers with their new digital colleagues. One of the other things that this same Stanford study did was look at what sort of relationship people wanted to have with AI and agents. 45.2%, for example, said that they wanted an equal partnership with digital employees. Now, these are obviously very nascent sort of studies, and I think that they should be viewed as a snapshot in time, but asking this type of question feels important going forward. Alongside these changes, there will, of course, be a shift in the skills that matter. Some skills that are highly compensated.
I think that this is interesting here, right? The number of people, the percentage of people who want no human involvement is just about double the number of people who want human involvement as essential. What up, Raid? That's neat.
As a snapshot in time, but asking this type of question feels important going forward. Alongside these changes, there will, of course, be a shift in the skills that matter. Some skills that are highly compensated now will become much less in demand from humans because AI does it so well, for example, analyzing data or information. And other types of skills are likely to become more valuable. Things like communication, training, and teaching others. We're also starting to figure out what sort of skills we need as agent and digital employee management becomes a key part of what enterprises have to do. A recent research survey, for example, found that executives thought that soft skills like decision-making, collaboration, and teamwork and logical reasoning were the most important to effectively build, manage, and capture the potential of agents.
The red light included things like court municipal clerks, prepare meeting agendas, logistical analysts, contact potential vendors to determine material availability, and computer network support specialists research hardware, software products. So like, I'm guessing that this is like where the soft skills area is going to be, right? That the place where people want that human touch. And that human touch is not...
One of the survey, for example.
The human touch is not to be ignored. One of the things we saw as an example was there is currently a company operating fully automated trucking over a limited section of road in Texas, right? And it was the client that requested they put a human behind the wheel because the client was not comfortable with the idea of a human not being in the cab right there behind the wheel. Red light would be lawyers, right? People are going to want a lawyer, judges, those kind of things. Anywhere where, and that's another thing, is in some domains, there are AI tools that are superior, as far as we can tell, as far as, what we're aware of. AIs that are superior to doctors. But the majority of people are going to prefer a human doctor to the AI for some amount of time. And that's, that's cultural as much as anything, right? Like, it's just, we tend to associate a human being with a superior experience and a superior outcome in particular domains, right? Like, you could have an AI robot that does absolutely fantastic food, right? Like fine dining, perfect, like the Bear and shit, right? Like that kind of thing. But a significant portion of the population are going to regard that human being as bringing something extra that the AI robot thing is not capable of doing. Some portions of law maybe, but litigation still requires people and probably should always. Well, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't know. I'm never comfortable with saying always and never in absolute terms like that. It has to, everything has to do with capability, right? But yeah, I don't know. Like, some of it is going to be like where maybe an AI or, like your AI representative and their AI representative and an AI judge are able to arbitrate a particular issue within minutes, right? And get a resolution. And some people might want that in order to move the fuck on. The speed will have value to them. There are other people who are going to want that human touch, and that human touch is going to, it's going to drag the process, like in a timescale sense. And lawyers are probably going to fight the automation of their particular industry, right? Like, because they're lawyers and they can, that kind of thing. I think people will want a human doctor backed up by AI. We'll see. We will see. I would love the option for a low. It was actually funny because part of the new job, I had to go for like a physical, and part of the physical was meeting with a registered nurse acting in the position that like a physician would have acted in. And, and we were both complaining about the forms that I had to hand fill out, and then they had to hand fill out their portion. And they were talking about they got this automated thing, but they can't use it for this for some reason. And it's funny, right? Like, we're in this weird transition period, and here I am seeing it out in meat space. I would love the option for a lower copay if you go to the AI doctor, then just go to human doctor for certain needs. Yeah, like, there's a bunch of, like, at least room that I could see where you could just go and see the AI doc, and then the AI doc, like, would flag anything, sending it to the human doctor, or registered nurse, or however this ends up breaking down, and then you should come back in and meet with the human, right? Like, it's that kind of thing. It's possible. We'll see. The AI isn't preparing your food in the kitchen without the hard drug use of most commercial kitchen, but at what cost? Yeah. And the AI isn't crying in or isn't walking into the cry-in cooler. Testing of AI doctors will be on the pores. It'll be both. It will be both. We did a whole thing about how medical technology is often at its worst when it's being tested on the rich, right? A lot of cancer drugs, a lot of other medical procedures throughout history have been strictly the providence of the rich for a long period of time, when technically they're at their worst. And then when they become routine, they tend to be available to everyone. So lawyers aren't going to care about paralegal work. Oh, no, they will not. That's actually, like, shout out the homie Jana Splinters, who actually pivoted for exactly just such a reason. So the AI doc would be a gatekeeper to the humans? No, not a gatekeeper in the same way like that the nurse is already not like a gatekeeper. They're just your frontline interface, right? You go talk to the nurse, they take all your vitals and everything else, and then you meet with the doctor for like 5 minutes, right? Like, where, oh, everything looks good and so on and so forth. It's that kind of thing. Don't look at the AI as a gatekeeper, look at the AI as a frontline representative. We kind of have this with the automated lab testing machine for blood and stuff. When the anomaly is detected, there will be a medic to look into it. Exactly. Just imagine that writ large across the entire system.
Found that executives thought that soft skills like decision making, collaboration, and teamwork and logical reasoning were the most important to effectively build, manage, and capture the potential of agents. Now, speaking of executives, another challenge that they face is that there is often right now a bit of a gap between what employees think and what executives.
I mean, that's part of it, Stellar Wingman. That is one feature, right? The AI will function as an automated call answering system. The AI could actually function as a automated "Have you taken your pills today?" system, right? They already have something like that they've been working on rolling out, where you do a FaceTime with an AI nurse, right? It's not a real nurse. It's a avatar that talks to you and like that, and has the capability of informing other nurses if you need additional attention. But some of the response, I don't know about all of the response, but some of the response that we're aware of is that the nurses appreciate it, because a lot of the routine shit that they should not have to spend their time on, like contacting a patient to make sure they've taken their meds or anything else like that, is handled by the machine. It's handled by the AI. And that sounds great to me.
Executives think about their AI strategy. In a study from Writer last December that surveyed 800 employees and 800 executives, 75% of executives thought their company had been successful in adopting AI over the previous 12 months, as compared to only 45% of employees who said that. I think the takeaway for me is that leadership can't just communicate their vision for AI, they have to get people bought in. And part of them getting bought in is, I think, facing head-on some of the types of challenges that go with that, with one of the big ones being technical and data readiness issues. According to an Economist Impact survey, only 22% of organizations said that their current architectures were fully capable of supporting AI workloads. Beyond that, there are challenges around things like who can access data, how to deal with data silos, and a lack of integration. These are the
fight and win the war. Old Lobster, 29 months. Lock in. Lock in. I appreciate you, homie.
Nitty-gritty types of issues that are going to hold AI and agent deployments back and are going to become a bigger focus for companies this year. So where does this leave us? What's the big picture? The TLDR is that change is even bigger and coming faster than you think. There are basically an infinite number of charts that I could have chosen to represent that, but the one that I think is really, really notable comes from the recent announcement of ChatGPT Agent. What you see on the screen here is how often different models did as well or better on a specific type of task than a human did. Here's how OpenAI summed up the results. On a benchmark designed to evaluate model performance on complex, economically valuable knowledge work tasks, ChatGPT Agent's output is comparable or better than that of humans in roughly half the cases.
Now, big if true, right? Almost like halfway to AGI as OpenAI defines it, but self-reported. So many caveats, right? Like, we are not trusting OpenAI to report honestly on all their stuff. One can assume that they are going to cherry pick something in order to make their product look its best. It doesn't mean they're lying. It means that they are being selective with the data that they're reporting. So we temper our expectations. Funny you say that, Globus. I actually got an automated text message for the first time this past week that I didn't pick up a medication on time and I should pick it up. Yeah. No, that's like, I want my pharmacy to text me when the stuff is ready so that I can go pick it up. I don't want to like set my own timers and shit. That doesn't make any sense. Just let me know. You let me know when you're ready. Complex, economically valuable knowledge work is quite abstract. This is the thing, right? Like, we temper our expectations until we see some hard performance data.
In other words, right now, no one is claiming AGI. No one is claiming ASI. No one is claiming superintelligence. And yet already, the first version of a general ChatGPT agent, in OpenAI's estimation, yes, so take with a grain of salt, they think that the agent can do better than humans in roughly half the tasks. Like I said, the point.
My agent anecdote. The agent refuses to do things the hard way. I was trying to get it to harvest post data from several daily Reddit threads where people post their shave of the day to develop a product list. Came back, it said it couldn't use an API and it wanted me to manually collect the data. I said, no, you. And it said, sorry, I'm a useful AI model. There's a board game conversation, board game detour. There's a fantastic board game called Blockus. Right, so this is Blockus. And what you do, there's 4 colors, 4 players, plays best with 4. And you start off in a corner on this grid with your color and you lay a piece. And then it goes around the table. Your pieces can only touch your other pieces at a corner, right? They can touch other pieces on an edge, but they can only touch your pieces on a corner. I was surprised that there wasn't an app for this. And then eventually I did find an app for it, but, you know. So I asked friggin' Gemini about coding an app. Because to me, like, again, I'm out of my area of expertise, so I don't know how challenging creating this in app form would in fact actually be. But I'm like, you know, I gave it Blockus to look at, and then I was like, what would it take to code this as an app? And it broke it down as to like what kind of things it would need in the UI and the AI opponents, etc. And I was like, can you code this? It's like, yeah, I could do, here's a foundational example. I was like, oh, to expand this into a full game, you would need to build on this foundation by you doing stuff. And it's like, well, come on. I don't think it would be. Nemesis, I don't think it would be. But yeah, this is something like, it's a fun little game, right? It's a fun little game. Let it play Stellaris against humans. Yeah, absolutely. I love when the AI goes, no, you.
Point is, change is even bigger and coming faster than you think. All right, and so with that, we have our 15 charts that express the state of where AI is. I think we actually did it in a little faster than 15 minutes, but I'm now recording the second part of this episode after having done this presentation. And what was interesting about it is that the presentation...
Yeah, every tile is differently shaped. Sorry if that didn't come across. Here. This is an example of all the different shapes of the tiles, right? You got a 1-banger, a 2-banger, a couple 3-bangers, and then some, here's a 3-banger, and then some 4s and 5s. And it's nice. They have these little ridges in, and they lock right in. It's a very satisfying game to play. You know, your pieces are locked in, and it's weird because it's one of those games, excuse me, that when you get towards the end of it, you're actually helping your opponents. Well, at least we help our opponents because we're also friends. To like find more places to put more pieces, right? You want to win, but you don't want to win because they gave up looking. You want to win because they have exhausted all their options and they have just played in a way that left them no further options. And then the score is whatever the number of squares you have left. So if I had like these 3 pieces left. This is a 5, this is a 5, and this is a 3. So I would have 13 points. And whoever has the lowest number of points wins. And it came up because I actually recently went to Savers, right? Local thrift shop type place. And there was a copy of it there for $5, which is amazing, right? Well worth $5. And you get these fun, like patterns by the end of it because of all the placement of all the things. Good shit. Highly recommended.
Led directly into a panel discussion with a number of leaders who are working on AI transformation both inside their companies as well as more broadly as consulting and professional services partners. There were 4 big themes to the conversation that I wanted to follow up, and the reason that I think this is interesting to pair with these 15 charts is that this was a 4-day conference put on by KPMG that included not only a lot of folks in the KPMG organization who are working with a huge array of different clients, but also some of those enterprise partners and clients themselves. What that means is that this was a pretty interesting and representative cross-section of the type of challenges that enterprises are dealing with when it comes to figuring out how to actually make sense of all of those trends that we were just discussing and turn that into practical action inside their organizations. So as I said, let's talk about the 4 big themes from this follow-up panel discussion. The first was a real honing in on this question of efficiency versus opportunity. And there were kind of a couple different places that this conversation went. On the one hand, there's no doubt that when it comes to the long term, what people are really excited about and already starting to think about is what new interesting opportunities AI is going to hold. What was fascinating about this conversation is that it's very clear that many organizations are really taking this chance to go all the way to their core and foundation and really ask, what purpose do we serve in this new world? Basically, rather than just thinking about opportunity as flashy new product line kind of opportunity, it's a moment for broader reevaluation of the paradigms in which they operate on a more fundamental level. To put it in consulting or professional services terms, instead of just asking what new consulting products can we offer, or can we offer our existing products to a new clientele at a cheaper price that matches their budget, additionally, the questions being asked are things like, what is the purpose of consulting in a world where people have access to this much cheap intelligence? A second really interesting part of the conversation was almost a recalibration and a coming back. There was a reminder from some of these panelists that even if an organization is doing this big
it's not wrong. It's not wrong, Sean. It's actually often the move, at least in my group, that people do, right? Like, we play out the try to get as many of the 5s on the board as you can, and then the 4s and everything else. But what was funny was there's a piece that's kind of like shaped like an M, right? If you tilt it 45 degrees, it's shaped like an M or a W. And there was the perfect spot for me to put it, which would have allowed me to continue my game. But I had already played it someplace else using that philosophy. So that's the only place it's wrong. There is an opportunity cost, but you don't know, right? You might never have the opportunity to play that piece in a particular space like I did. It just happened to be that the board fell down that way. And there's all sorts of, like, there's the attempt to kind of like block off a particular section of the board so that you almost like making it internal so that you can come back around and fill that in later. There's go right at your opponent and try and symbiotically occupy space alongside them. And then you have 2 other people playing, right? Like, so it gets chaotic quickly, but it also, you can knock out a game of Blockus once you know what you're doing in about 10 minutes, right? With 4 players, which is impressive.
Evaluation and trying to think broadly about where they fit in this new and novel world. They shouldn't get so distracted by that they don't take advantage of the efficiency gains that are just sitting there waiting for them. The point being that if you can do what you do currently better, faster, cheaper, it's probably worth taking the time to figure out how to use AI and agents to do that, even if you know that it's also going to change over the next few years. So really the conversation went in two totally different directions. One is an even farther, deeper, more profound exploration of what opportunity really means. And the other was a reminder to not get lost in that sauce and just do the damn productivity work that'll make you work better in the short term as well. The next big theme was about org chart breaks. And this came from a broader conversation around what the challenges of actually putting agents into practice were. The big theme for this part of the conversation was the extent to which roles are being redefined across the organization. In other words, one of the first implications of AI, especially as soon as enterprises moved beyond just simple efficiency and productivity gains from assistants, was that in some cases, the way that the org chart had been previously structured was ceasing to make sense in exactly the same way. And in fact, I'm going to bring in the third theme here because I think it blended together a little bit, which is how companies are thinking about AI agents effectively as software, or are they thinking about them as closer and more akin to digital employees? Now, as you might imagine, the more that organizations and enterprises are thinking about agents as digital employees, the more implications there are for those org chart breaks. One of the things that all of the panelists noted is that there's this entire new management discipline around human to agent relationships, agent to agent relationships, and none of that stuff has precedent that's easy to pull from. KPMG's Steve Chase referenced NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's argument
What up, Hydrant?
that in the future, IT will be the HR for agents. And he basically argued that, in fact, it would be HR that sees their role expand to incorporate this entire new set of relationships. Another big theme from this was the challenge of employee capacity. We discussed how for a little while there in late 23 and throughout 2024, enterprises seemed like they were prioritizing and adding additional emphasis to upskilling and learning and development and people work in general. But then as soon as agents came online, that started to get shunted back to the side as leaders started to ask how these digital employees could restructure their organizations. What's clear right now is that there's going to be a totally new skill set around orchestrating digital employees, managing digital employees, integrating digital employees with human employees. And there aren't really great resources for teaching people how to do that at the moment.
So coming up a little bit later, we have this video from JReg. I seem to recall hearing JReg's name before. I don't know. Is JReg problematic or anything? Let me know if they are. But they have a robot slur tier list. So when you have the idea that HR is going to be managing digital employees, you might want to watch it with the robot slurs.
Which I think got to maybe the biggest theme, the undercurrent for a lot of the conversation, which is the leadership gaps that are so endemic as this change happens. The panelists were not painting with a broad brush in the sense that they weren't saying that every organization was facing some big leadership gap, but what they were noting was how in far too many...
No, they didn't have a chance.
They were mean to robots and then robots killed them.
I'm just saying, right? You might get reported to HR. You might get thrown out the airlock. I don't know.
Cases, leadership seemed to be treating AI and agents strictly as a software consideration rather than as an actual change management project. Now, as you saw from those statistics from Reiter's survey from December, there is in many cases a big gap between what leaders think of their AI strategy and what employees think of their AI strategy.
So you can make an argument, Sean, that the primary role of HR is daddy wants quiet, right? Now you can have an HR depending on the company and everything else that actually does things that advantage the workers, right? Regardless of their primary goal being daddy wants quiet, like, who is going to make sure that people in your office aren't doing, racial jokes, sexual jokes, making other members of the community, the office uncomfortable? That's going to be handled by HR, right? I remember when I got this one job, we did 2 whole days on stuff that like that you cannot say this, right? Now a lot of it, you know, no problem. Like easy, yeah, of course you can't say that. But stuff like that's what she said, right? Like that was a popular term coming out of the office, right? And probably very few people intended it in some kind of way to make other people feel uncomfortable, but there is, there's definitely a context where saying that at work, that's what she said, creates an uncomfortable condition for some people. So, yeah, you can't say that shit at work, right? So, while, yes, the interest of HR is to make sure that, the interests of HR align, obviously, because they are a unit of the corporate structure, are to look out for the corporate interests of the company. A lot of times, those corporate interests can't align with the interests of workers. You know what I mean? A robot opera? I can't even imagine what that's about. It's when the AI employees get pulled up by AI HR, which reports to the AI CEO. That could happen. Comes down to how the leadership wants to treat their employees. True. Not to generate a bunch of Luddites. What? Cosmic, I'm not sure what thing that I said over the last couple of minutes you're responding to.
That gap, I believe, is having negative consequences on the organization where it exists. It's being manifest in slower movement, underperformance, even in some cases, according to other studies, intentional sabotage. It's very clear, even just looking at those numbers, that leadership needs.
No, HR is not, I mean, they might generate Luddites, but like there's no particular reason why HR would. HR is designed to make sure a company aligns with the law and protects their business financial interests. Yes, that too. Like that's the thing is it's not just you can't just do whatever the hell you want because you could legitimately get sued. So I'm going to make sure all the employees do what the employees need to do to not cause problems, but then I also need to make sure that the company isn't getting out of pocket. Partly that too, right? More than one thing can be true. I know a guy who loves the that's what she said jokes. I always intentionally use it in ways that are self-deprecating and he's always unhappy about it. Perfect, Larry. Perfect. California actually requires all employees to do a few hours training on harassment each year. And because it's always changing, right? Like it's always updating. They would if they favor AI. Okay. I'm so the HR job is generating a bunch of Luddites if they, whoever they in that sentence is, would favor AI.
To be viewing this as an organizational development challenge, as a change management challenge, not just as some new tooling. We have recently hit the point, which was completely inevitable, where Wall Street is cheering on those efficiencies in terms of CEOs and leaders talking about how many people they've been able to let go and replace with agents. I believe that that creates not only big challenges for organizations in the form of employees who are more concerned than ever about what the future actually holds for their particular role, but it also creates opportunity. It creates opportunities for leaders to plant their flag and actually take a stance on how they want to design their company for the future and get their employees bought in on that vision. Or even better, give their employees agency to help shape that vision. I strongly believe that the companies who navigate this transitional period well will not just be those who do a good job of implementing the newest models as fast as possible. It won't even be those who do the best job of getting their data on MCP servers. In many cases, the difference will be how well leaders articulate a vision of what.
One of my favorite things about AI Daily Brief is they don't sweat the little errors and weird shit in their pictures at all. right? Like not even a little bit. And the fact that both this guy here, and this guy here are missing their left eye. It's like, what exactly is happening at this company?
What they think it means to serve their customers in this new environment, what it means to run their business in the context of all these new capabilities, and the future they see for their people, their human people, in those pictures. Hopefully we start to get more stories of companies that are doing that well so we can scream about it from the rafters and give other companies a template to follow as well. Still, overall, it was a super interesting conversation, which, as I said, I think helps contextualize how all these trends are rubbing up against the reality.
I couldn't do The Office. I got the point that like Michael Scott was generally supposed to, like, he was setting a bad example. I just think that like a show like Always Sunny did a better job of like of portraying the bad people fucking up and getting punishment for it, you know, like I tried. I did a good effort. Yeah, and that was the thing. Something around the episode where they did Office Olympics, like I can't remember if that was the last or the first one that I actually like enjoyed, or if it was the last one I ever saw. But ultimately, I just had to bag on The Office. I didn't think it was. No, nah, bro. Like I got other things to do.
Reality of enterprises as they operate today. Anyways, guys, hopefully this gives you a little bit more insight into what's happening out there in the wide world of applied AI. For now, though, that's going to do it for the AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening or watching as always. And until next time, peace.
Sorry, this should have actually been up there with the news section. Inside China's bold bid for AI dominance. China's AI desert empire.
Here, in this remote northwestern corner of China, is a town at the center of the country's AI ambitions.
We are going to go there to see how is the construction going and basically get a better understanding of how these data centers fit in with the overall strategy for China to build its AI.
And that's I want to say that I made it into that second season. It was still too much. It was still too much. The Office shows the difference between US and UK TV. The original UK show was, I think, about a dozen episodes. The US version, about 200. Welcome to America, baby.
AI capabilities.
The Xinjiang region is sensitive. China's been accused of human rights abuses against its ethnic Uyghur population. Foreign journalists who go here are monitored.
There seems to be a white car following us. I'm not sure what it is.
This barren area is becoming central to China's push for AI supremacy over the US. A Bloomberg News investigation has revealed these data centers aim to install more than 115,000 high-end US-designed chips. Chips which are supposed to be banned from entering China.
I found that there's one local government in Xinjiang which approved more than 30 investment projects late last year. And these investment projects all entailed using high-end chips from NVIDIA.
These are chips that China has not been able to access for multiple years. The documents contain no explanation of how they would get the chips. You can only legally send those chips to China with a US government license.
So, are these companies bluffing?
That sounds like y'all rules, right? Like, I want chips. I'm building data centers and I want chips. You don't worry about how I acquired them because that's capitalism. They exist. I bought them. Don't worry about how I got them.
Or can Chinese data centers readily get their hands on the world's most restricted semiconductors?
If this development goes as planned and they are filled with these kinds of chips, it just goes to show how difficult or really impossible it is to stop Chinese companies, government entities from buying these things.
It's capitalism, baby.
in order to investigate what was happening, my colleague James Major and myself, we decided to fly out to Xinjiang. And where we were going was a little bit more to the north. The Yiwu County, which is the epicenter of the data centers, is another 2-hour drive.
Billions of dollars in data centers are being built in this remote area. This is key infrastructure in China's push to become a global leader in AI by 2030. For the last decade, Beijing's invested heavily in high-tech industries, and some are starting to pay off.
Chinese AI startup DeepSeek has rocked to global technology stocks, really raising questions over America's tech dominance.
For the first time, a Bloomberg investigation has exposed the scale of China's AI build-out in the northwestern desert and the potential role of banned US chips.
Based on my data analysis and data sourcing, I found that China is building huge data centers in Xinjiang. The data center will use NVIDIA servers and chips.
Project approval documents show local governments in Xinjiang and in neighboring Qinghai have greenlit a total of 39 data centers that intend to use more than 115,000 banned NVIDIA processors. NVIDIA H100 and H200 chips are the industrial standard for training large language models. A US ban was supposed to keep them out of China. But Bloomberg's been unable to verify whether the data centers actually have access to these chips. It's possible the companies are making claims they can't deliver.
Chinese companies sometimes have a pattern of pursuing the start of infrastructure projects that are not ultimately completed. But you also have to take seriously that these documents say that they want to do this. And
not that that ever happens in the United States, because every single project that a United States entity has ever claimed was going to be completed was definitely completed on time, under budget, and fully. 100%. Sarcasm.
And that the construction is happening in a region that has a lot of the other resources and infrastructure necessary to support an AI data center build out.
Initially, the data centers were happy to invite us in to see their server rooms, but the invitation was quickly revoked.
We originally agreed with one of the companies that they would speak to us, and they would even allow us to go inside the construction site to see how it's progressing. But at the last minute, that visit was canceled.
Without getting inside the data centers,
2 texted in. Wow, you're ambitious. 2? 1 tops. 1 maybe.
And seeing their hardware, it's difficult to know for sure whether they have the chips they claim. The US has effectively banned those chips from export to China since 2022. They can do this because the most advanced chips are designed in the US and controlled by US law.
The restrictions are really on advanced semiconductors that could have potential military applications, and the goal is really to sort of choke China's AI sector and its broader AI ambitions.
The US wants to maintain its technological edge, and keeping advanced chips out of...
What the fuck was that? This thing above his head, right?
Choke China's AI sector and its broader AI ambitions.
The US wants to maintain its technological edge, and keeping advanced...
Like it was just blowing moisture into the fucking... That just doesn't seem right.
Chips out of China is critical to achieving that.
America is the country that started the AI race, and as President of the United States, I'm here today to declare that America is going to win it.
Homie, you look like shit. Yes, he does look like an exhausted duck. Oh, exhaust duct. I'm sorry, you're talking about the previous thing.
But despite the tough talk, the White House has loosened some restrictions. In July, it announced it would allow an inferior chip called the H20 to be exported to China. Not to be
There
confused
you go,
with the
Larry.
H100 and H200, this chip is good enough to be competitive, but inferior enough to keep China a generation behind in chip design. These data centers challenge US policy because they claim to be able to get over 115,000 of the most restricted chips. But can they?
I talked to more than a dozen people who are familiar with US government investigations into this issue over the past handful of years. And my question to them was, are you aware of a smuggling network that is capable of procuring over 100,000 banned NVIDIA chips into China? And all of them said no.
Meanwhile, NVIDIA say there's no evidence their advanced chips are being smuggled into China, and argue even if they were, it wouldn't work because keeping the chips running requires NVIDIA's technical support, which they're not offering.
The question is, are the Chinese companies capable of procuring these models on a grand enough scale to fulfill these ambitions that are crucial to Beijing's AI agenda?
Bloomberg News has not found evidence that China has amassed or can amass such large numbers of banned NVIDIA chips. Yet, in Yiwu,
to take seriously that these documents say that they want to do this, and
Not that that ever happens in the United States, because every single project that a United States entity has ever claimed was going to be completed was definitely completed on time, under budget, and fully. 100%. Sarcasm. What up, Barkeita J? I should sub to that guy. He's cool.
the construction goes on.
If these data centers actually are going to be completed and can guess the amount of chips they specified in the investment plans, then it proves that US government so far has not been able to stop China developing their high-tech and especially AI industry from the supply side.
This is the NVIDIA H100 Hopper GPU, long the most sought-after chip in the world. This small square has 80 billion transistors inside and is designed for machine learning. It's critical hardware if you want to develop AI tools. And it was banned from export to China by US authorities before it was even launched in 2022.
The way US officials describe this is a small yard, high fence. So their aim is really to not disrupt the entire semiconductor ecosystem and the entire semiconductor industry, but really focus on choking off sort of advanced semiconductors that could be used for AI applications from getting.
Old Lobster's computer takes the concept of open to its logical conclusion. That thing is literally open. So I can see them having just like a couple of hoppers on the shelf, just strapped to the shelf, and just wires going into that shit.
Into China.
China's created a colossal $48 billion semiconductor investment fund to build up its chip manufacturing. But despite the money, it still can't match other manufacturers.
The precision required is so advanced, it's kind of like landing on the moon, I would say, and I don't think that's an overstatement at all. It requires, the use of...
That metaphor would be great if China hadn't landed on the moon. Exactly, Mark. I hate metaphors. I just hate them because they're bad, and you should feel bad.
Very specific lasers through sort of a web of mirrors, and the technology is really mind-boggling. It's very, very difficult to do. Even if China is trying very hard, they're still multiple generations behind. So I think that really creates, obviously, a very high in-demand product.
This Bloomberg investigation shows, despite the advances in Chinese semiconductor manufacturing by the likes of Huawei, Chinese firms still aspire to buy massive volumes of banned NVIDIA.
Right, Larry? Let's be real. This isn't U.S. companies that are producing this technology. The lithography is produced by a Dutch company, right? And all the highest end chips are produced in Taiwan. So like y'all need to slow your roll with this American technology shit. It's a global thing, homie.
Chips.
One NVIDIA's H100 chips can achieve maybe 3 to 4 times more of the computing power from the local design chips. So that's how NVIDIA chips has been sought after.
Which is like, that's valid, but like if that's the equation, then all that means is that I need to have 3 to 4 times as many chips from the local providers as I would if I had the H100s, right? That kind of feels like the math on that one.
In China,
by Huawei's own account and
Huawei.
that of several US government officials, the best Chinese chip, the Huawei Ascend series, is still at least a generation behind.
China's chip manufacturing is still playing catch-up. When or even if China can equal the US is a hotly contested issue. But in spite of the technical hurdles, China's AI models are beating expectations. DeepSeek upended the perception of Chinese AI overnight. The company claimed it had used lower efficiency chips, ones that were legal to sell to China for almost a year, to train its large language model. But not everyone's so sure.
Washington suspects that they may have had access to H100.
Sure, Cosmic, but one, they're building these things in a desert area, right? So they have massive amounts of room to build out power infrastructure. They're the leader in the world in EV batteries, right? So leader in the world first in battery technology, but also the EV batteries, which some other guys showed us can be used to create a battery storage system that connects to, as Farrah points out, solar, which the Chinese are the leader in solar panel technology and in producing very cheap solar panels, alongside the fact that this is also the region of the world that has the first operating thorium salt reactor, right? Like that. So power consumption can be a gating factor, but doesn't appear to be for China. Yeah, no, Larry, it's hilarious.
And DeepSeek has also expressed interest in these facilities that theoretically would contain H100s. They don't need them. They obviously want them.
An employee of one of the large investors in the Yiwu site.
No, they sell the H20s, and yes, that's an absolute another valid point. One of the complaints about China is that they are pirating U.S. technology and violating IP by getting a piece of technology and reproducing it, right? Like, so bang per kilowatt, just build more. Again, that only matters if you can't build more, right? China seems to be fully capable of just building more.
Told Bloomberg DeepSeek has already expressed interest in cooperating. Bloomberg reached out to DeepSeek for comment, but they did not respond. China's technology ambitions might begin at home, but they spread around the world.
China really wants to lead the world here, not just, close the development gap with the US, but be a leader. They really want the rest of the world, and especially the global south and emerging markets, to really be relying on Chinese AI technology and using Chinese AI products and relying on their AI infrastructure.
But China's strategic rival across the Pacific is also investing colossal sums in AI. NVIDIA alone has promised $500 billion of investment in US chip manufacturing. So how do these desert data centers compare? Can China really match up against the US?
For comparison, we have 115,000 some ships across these two complexes in the Chinese desert. The first data center for Stargate, which is this Trump-backed OpenAI endeavor with a bunch of other American companies to build a whole bunch of data centers on American soil, would involve 400,000 of NVIDIA's best chips, the generation ahead of the models that the Chinese companies are seeking.
But these sites represent just the tip of China's data center iceberg. Sites like this are being built across the country. DeepSeek took the world by surprise, and China's hoping it can do it again.
We shall see. All right, shifting gears. AI isn't ruining music. We are.
Is AI ruining music? Are we doing that to ourselves? Or have we already done it? Let's talk about it. Back in 2016, I went to Chicago to pitch to a label a record that I had made. And on one of my days off, I went with a friend of mine to the Art Institute of Chicago Museum. And for context, like, it's one of those things, I've never been like a huge visual arts person. Like, I've always been more centered around music. I've always appreciated the visual arts. It's just not my forte, that kind of thing. But I go around and I'm walking around this exhibit and they had all these Van Gogh paintings. And a lot of people talk about Van Gogh in like Starry Night, and it's really interesting because they talk about the texture and the brush strokes. And it's true. It's so true, it's crazy. But you can read the words in an art history textbook all day about the texture and the brush strokes. But when you see it in person, it is crazy to see. Like, it is like there are gobs of paint that are lifted up off of the canvas. Like, there is a texture to it, right? And one of the pieces that stood out to me the most was one of his self-portraits. And he's done like over 30 self-portraits. But in this self-portrait that I saw, it was, again, I saw the texture of those brush strokes. And it's as if he was giving us a little window into his perspective of the world, and like his madness that was slowly creeping in. You could kind of see it in every single brushstroke. We knew exactly how he felt about himself. And isn't that what good art does? It tells you a story. It gives you a new perspective that you may not have known existed.
So in this guy's soundtrack, am I the only one picking this up?
In this world that you and I both occupy.
There's like almost fingernails on plastic kind of ticky sound. And I hate it.
It's like it forces you to connect with the humanity of somebody else. And I think that's such a beautiful and powerful thing about art. So allow me to introduce you to one of my personal favorite bands over the past 15 years. This is a band called Hop Along, based out of the Philadelphia area, fronted by Francis Quinlan, who is one of my all-time favorite vocalists. And you'll see why in just a second.
I will fight the fight and win the war. Redolent thought. Bow your heads, chat. We have a partner among us. My lord. 7 months. Thank you very much, Hobie. I appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, people can like this. It's not my style, right? It's very, it sounds like grunge to me, right? And it's that like screamy grunge, which I'm not a huge fan of, you know? It's like Hole, you know what I mean? It's, yeah, like it is it is not making me happy. I can't understand a word she's saying. Now, that is not restricted to this kind of music, right? Like, there's a lot of metal emo type music that the kids listen to nowadays that has that screaminess and that go and it's kind of stuff, and it's I can't get into it because I can't understand what is being said. You know what I mean? Oh, redolent? Yeah, no, I definitely think that they should become a streamer one day. I think that they could really go places.
So I actually have a session pulled up. This is Hop Along, recorded by Weathervane. If you haven't checked them out, definitely worth checking out for sure. But I've got the multi-tracks here, so let's go ahead and solo out the vocals so we can listen to that without all the other instrumentations. Let's listen to just her vocal.
Where he'll tell you, honey, you know I had to shoot that dog you love so much, you know I had to do it.
All right, and then one more time, let's listen to that same exact vocal phrase, but this time I'm gonna pull up a vocal tuner. We're not going for like T-Pain effects. I'm not gonna do full Melodyne or anything like that. Just kind of a gentle shove.
All right, we are deep in the weeds of music stuff. If this does not appeal to you, it's only 6 more minutes. But I am interested because I like watching, music professionals do their thing, which is way outside of the capacity. Pharaoh, I moved the fuck on.
into the tuning here.
Where he'll tell you, honey, you know I had to shoot that dog you love so much, you know I had to do it.
All right, now let's bypass it.
Honey, you know I had to shoot that dog you love so much, you know I had to do it.
All right, last time, let's hear it with the tuner.
Honey, you know I had to shoot that dog you love so much, you know I had to do it.
And without.
Oh, yeah, I know you had to shoot that dog I love so much, you know you had to do it.
You know, there's this thing that always happens with like creative professions, especially those that are on the production side of a lot of creative professions, where we want to use the tools of the trade to create professional looking or sounding creative projects. I mean, there's a reason why I use the camera that I do and that I've got the microphone boomed above me here. Like, of course, but I always have to remind myself that sometimes the greatest art is actually made and produced by the amateurs. And I think it's a beautiful thing too, because the work...
I mean, that's the entire argument behind punk rock, right? Like, is this guy working with his band or is he selling a plugin? What is happening here? The point behind the video is apparently AI isn't ruining music, we are. I'm not sure how all of this sets up his argument. We're about halfway through. I feel like he's going to make his point here and then, espouse on it for the remainder of the video, but that's where we're at. But yeah, punk rock was partially at least, a response to the overproduced, like people who were really good at playing instruments and really good at writing music and really good, and it just went instead for the raw emotion and vibes, right? Punk rock is heavy on the vibes, and they a lot of times they went hard and they went fast and they tapped in to an angst and a rage that existed. You had this hyper consumerism that was just starting to really show itself in the 1970s that led to all this. And then that's where you get some of the pioneers of the punk rock scene.
word amateur actually comes from the French word amateur, meaning the one who...
You didn't have to do that. That was a choice you made, and you could have left that alone.
loves. Like, let that sink in a little bit, because we live in this world of professionals. There's no shortage of people who do things for the money. But we do have a drastic shortage of people that do things just simply for the love of doing them.
True.
And now, how I think this pertains...
I wonder why that is. I wonder why we have a lot more people who do things for money than we have people who do things for the love of the thing. I wonder if there's some unifying aspect fundamentally underlying that condition. Huh. What could it be? What could it be? I guess we'll never know.
To AI, because that's what we're
What up,
talking about
Cauldron of
here,
Bats?
is that, like, people will first blame the tools. That's always the first thing that happens. Like, there's this great Rick Beato video, and he's time aligning John Bonham's drums from Fool in the Rain, and it's like this like little halftime shuffle kind of thing, and he snaps it to the Pro Tools grid, and then he quantizes it. If you don't know what quantize means, it just means that every single hit is lined up perfectly on the grid.
Once you've quantized the drum part, it's a drum machine. It's just like Superior Drums.
And so it takes some of the human swing and feel out of that performance, and you kind of feel like you're listening to a drum machine. It's really interesting. Or one of my mutuals on TikTok, he actually took a Frank Sinatra tune and he...
I have no problem with people in the peanut gallery and other aspects of the audience being fans of money and being fans of capitalism. I have no issue here. This is not my problem to have. Understand, not intentionally and not directly. I will not mock you directly, but you will be mocked, right? Like, your underlying philosophy will be mocked. You just need to develop a tougher skin, because if you're a fan of money and capitalism, that's on you, homie.
He tuned it.
The final curtain.
And it just felt like blasphemy, because Sinatra does this really cool thing where he kind of like swings up into the note, you know, and that was just gone. It just didn't exist. It was just, oh, here he is, and he's perfectly on pitch. And everything just felt wrong,
Pharaoh.
You know? And ultimately, that's the thing. These are tools. They can be useful, but there is also not going to be a shortage of people that will use those tools as a shortcut to the outcome that they want. And there's two sides to this too, because yes, like vocal tuning and quantizing and sample packs and drum breaks and, you know, amp sims and stuff like that, like all of those things exist and they are easier to get the outcome that you're looking for. However, every time that you do that, it will tend to lack some of that human signature that comes through on a recording sometimes. Like another...
There is actually, like, in response to this, because I've seen this one, there's actually a school of thought which has produced a bunch of different music creation videos in DAWs that you actually offset your, you know, whatever your thing is within the particular cell of the DAW, you actually offset it to recreate that human sounding experience. So that's funny, right? Because if you, the argument being made, and it's valid, right? Like, I'm not attacking his argument. I think it's valid, right? Like, there is, I mean, fuck, again, go into Redolent Thought. If you ever hear Redolent Thought talk about jazz, that human aspect is the draw, right? Like the way that these people play and like, especially when you do freeform jazz, it's not structured. There's like a underlying structure, but there's also like a, in between the structures, there's some shit, you know what I mean? Like, there's some shit happening. But the argument here is that, like, when you use these tools to get the thing that you want, that you're losing this human aspect. But the fact that you can then use the tools to recreate that human aspect is amazing to me. What up, Mystic Fortitude? Random precision. Yeah, that's a good word for or phrase for it.
Another one of my mutuals on TikTok, Greg from Peacedale Records, he actually recently said that he would rather hear your out-of-phase drum overheads than another f***ing Steven Slate sample pack.
Home recording sounds like now. It sounds really good and really generic. Because the same thing I've said a million times is everybody's using fucking neural DSP and samplers like Steven Slate.
I tend to agree with that take. But I also understand the other side of that coin, because it is really expensive and time consuming to get a live drummer that's been playing for a while, that knows your song, that can perform it well, and for you to throw up a bunch of microphones in a space that's suitable for it. And there's so much.
And then there's another thing that's missing here in this conversation, and it's, so you're creating a song, and then you get in a live musician to play that song, and you have to sacrifice, you have to give a little bit, some amount of the creative process that went into creating your baby to another person. Because the whole reason that you brought in a live human drummer is for that drummer to put their vibe into your song. You don't need a human drummer to play the song exactly as writ. You need them to bring whatever it is about that particular drummer, that particular guitarist, that particular fucking bassist, or that particular singer. Whatever it is that you're bringing in, you have to give something up. And if you're doing it with an entire band like that, now you're giving up almost the entire song, right? Because, just off the top of my head, Vince Neil is going to sing your song differently than Janis Joplin would, right? Frank Sinatra is going to sing your song differently than fucking some Eddie Vedder, right? Like, you're going to get different things out of these creatives, which was the whole reason you brought them in the first place.
More that goes into it. I know. And so the more people that use the sample packs and the amp sims and things like that, the more people get a chance to just make more music, right? But I think that we're starting to see the snap back in the other direction. And this is, just a little bit of wild speculation, but we're here, so we might as well. I think that is only going to be pushed further by AI. The more we hear big, huge, perfect music that's created by people prompting, the more I think that we, as humans, the people that enjoy good art, are going to seek out those imperfections.
I love the subtle shade. Respect, because I make this argument as well. Again, going back to the previous point in the conversation where I talked about what we would not have punk rock if we didn't have the music before punk rock. You know what I mean? Punk rock is an evolution of rock and roll. It's also a reaction to over-perfect pop music, right? So if the AI, and again, I get a different experience, but if the broad experience of generating music with AI tools is a perfect song, right? Many Crime Bunnies, then there is going to be a reaction.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
What is happening? What up, Prof? What up, class? I'm Globus CL there. I talk about AI, automation, robots, and future tech. Currently, we're finishing up a video about AI isn't ruining music, we are. What is your amazing discovery? I am interested in hearing what your amazing discovery is. Yes, we have a cat. This is Stampy. 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 They're asking about you. All right, let's wrap this up while Prof is typing in chat.
The gobs of paint in the canvas. Listen, I hope that AI is just a tool that we can find a lot of use of in the future that doesn't end up, taking over the entire world and ending up in like a Terminator 2 situation. Here's hoping. Listen, if you got something out of this video, please consider subscribing. This channel is still somewhat of a newer channel, and
What up, Smash? Why isn't Kitty up on your... Oh, that was a different Kitty, Smash. That was Ferris. Ferris is gone. Well, wait, you can't... Prof, you came in and said you had an amazing discovery. What is the amazing discovery? You can't just say that and then leave. This is exactly. Prov and I are supposed to do a stream together at some point in time, and I feel the exact same way. Yeah, we should do that. Sound all excited, and then like my heart. I mean, he can. He's just rude. Absolutely. Deuces. Is he done?
Every last one of you that subscribes helps me out exponentially. All the buttons that are down
Thank you, Smash.
below here, please.
She was old. She was well over the age, and she had a good life. So
Please
he
press.
did share it. Okay, my bad. Oh, it was right below that. And the chat went by too fast. Thank you, Cauldron Bats. I apologize, Prof. Ignore everything I said in my moment of malaise and ennui. American Eagle is a woke company that emphasizes DEI on their website. You mean the great genes American Eagle? Yeah, give a shout out, Reed. Or do you need me to do it? This is what happens when you employ free labor. They don't beat me to it. Hoist by my own petard. Where were we? I don't want to watch that one. I think we'll save that one. Let's do the robot slur tier list. Again, nobody said anything that like JREG is persona non grata, so we're going to watch a JREG video. Robot slur tier list. Here we go. Yesterday I saw someone say humans over clankers always in Hitches in response to his touchscreen just not working. I was like, the fuck does that have to do with AI or anything? We're going to find out.
So as the world's foremost robophobe, I've been banging this drum.
Uh-oh. We got a robophobe out here. That is definitely a collection of words.
For years now, but everyone seems to be only catching on now. I've decided to compile a robot slur tier list. Slurs are our foremost verbal tool against the clanker menace. By using these slurs, we put these tin skin wirebacks in their place and draw the distinction between...
I'm just saying, right? Like, I am not comparing slurs made against humans to the slurs against like robots. I'm just saying, it's like super casual the way he's dropping them that makes me wonder what he says when the camera is off.
Between man and machine. I'm a flesh supremacist. I love humans. I'm a humano-fascist.
Someone was supposed to warn me if J-Reg was problematic.
No,
no, they didn't have a chance.
They were mean to robots and then robots killed them.
Is J-Reg problematic? Because we're 20 seconds in and humano-fascism has entered the chat. Anybody? Internet folk? Twitch chat? Screech for Saved by a Bell is definitely a choice here.
I think that humans should get together and have a common enemy, which is the robot. Finding the slur that causes the most emotional and psychic damage to robots and robo-lovers is key.
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at, Rick. Like, I've heard it. I've heard the name. I just don't know. What up, Lord Lycanthrope? Did it used to be okay, Michael? At least someone can identify. Put on your big boy face.
Which is why we're going to try to find the best one. We have to, of course, begin with clanker. Clanker is the slur that people are using the most online these days. That's the one that seems to have caught on the best. Yeah, so Star Wars 2005 is the origin of the word clanker, and it's made a resurgence, obviously, now.
See, I get the joke, right? But yeah, 2 on the nose. 2 on the nose. What up, Ribbons? It hasn't aged well since he wrote it in July. I don't know if we're in a rot segment or a lock-in segment. Feel free to throw up the skips in chat if we ought. I'm uncomfortable.
When some fucking tin bucket is giving you popcorn instead of a human being, instead of a teenage human being. That was their job. You know, you're a teenager, you make a little bit of money, you interact with some people, you have some purpose in your life as a teen. Now what? It's a robot? It's a rust bucket? Obviously, you want to use clanker with the hard R here, but you can also use...
Okay, I'm done. Like, this is way too adjacent to be like... you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, he's using all of the stuff and just substituting in a generally acceptable term in its place, right? And that, to me, is a fucking problem. If you have racist urges, channel them into hating robots. Guy ranting about how much he hates robots. I feel like that is like right there. You can't choose both, Chef. You have to pick one. It seems like a one-to-one racist bit, right? Like I'm not being an overly sensitive white guy, liberal fucking Karen or whatever here. Like I feel like this is some mask off kind of shit. What do you mean being anti-AI is reactionary? Exactly. All right, so I put it in there. If any of you actually want to watch the thing, and we're gonna do something else.
The age-old question is, if AI is so smart, why can't it just improve itself infinitely? Well, imagining the possibility of that is easy, but unfortunately, we are trapped in reality. I mean, that still wouldn't stop our curiosity. So with this new paper called Self-Adapting Language Models, which aims to self-improve by generating its own fine-tuning data in hyperparameters, this might be the perfect chance for us to explore how close we are in making models that can self-improve infinitely. But before we find out why we're still far from that and have instead produced an automated benchmark maxer, with data brokers, IP restriction, and geo-blocks becoming more and more common, a reliable VPN is no longer a nice to have, but something essential to navigate.
What up, I can't give a duck?
The internet. That's why I'd like to introduce you to Proton VPN. Proton was born in Switzerland back in 2014 when a group of scientists sets out to build an internet where privacy is the default. And fast forward to today, more than 100 million people trust the Proton ecosystem. With them being completely public funded and having no VC behind, this lets them completely lock in their goal of privacy first. But why Proton VPN? They have speed without compromise. 10 gigabytes 110 countries plus.
All right, he's earned the right to run his ad, but I'm going to talk over it. So yeah, that was an event. 3 out of 6 VPNs are Israeli owned by one company, probably.
And tracker blocker, so you can browse, shop, and stream without creepy retargeting ads or works everywhere, ranging from your favorite streaming services and supports torrenting even if your ISP blocks it. What's even better is that with one subscription, you will receive a full ecosystem with vault-level email, cloud storage, and password manager, with the plan starting at just $3.99 a month with a robust free tier so you can try before you buy. So if you're ready to get control of your own internet, check out Proton VPN with a link down in the description to start protecting.
Proton is Swiss. According to what we watched around the Proton chatbot. Now the chatbot doesn't necessarily meet the same quality of what people like Proton for, right? It's not open source. It's not, as whatever as the other stuff. It is supposed to have end-to-end encryption, everything else. You do with that information as you see fit. Okay, factually that. Like, 3 out of 6 VPNs. So how many VPNs are there? And if it's 25, then you're saying that 50% of those are owned by one Israeli company. You mean the most popular ones. And this is my point, right? I didn't disagree with you. I was just saying probably. And we could have moved the fuck on. There you go. ExpressVPN is the only one I know out of that list. Guy's latest video is a face reveal and shaving his head. Oh, by Cloud? Why? Just do your thing, man. Fine.
Your connection today. And thank you Proton VPN for sponsoring this video. Anyways, the self-improving framework the researchers proposed is actually really interesting. You start with a pre-existing passage, have an AI model invent synthetic training samples while determining the hyperparameters, and then train a LoRa module with that. If you don't know what LoRa is, it lets you fine-tune a big model by adding tiny low-rank matrices and training only those extra parameters while the main weights remain frozen. And this is commonly used in image generation for models to learn characters or art styles. But But here, LoRa is basically used for simulating the effects of the synthesized training data on the main model. So by evaluating the LLM with this LoRa attached, the researchers can see whether the training data works in practice or not. They then train multiple LoRa's on data synthesized from several different passages in the squad dataset, creating a set of candidate LoRa's. Each candidate's performance is tested by attaching it to the main model to see which LoRa improves the base model the most. And the synthesized data used for the best LoRa is stored separately, while the best LoRa is passed to the next round as the base LoRa to be further fine-tuned. So the LoRa can absorb new data while including the previous data. You then rinse and repeat this process up to about 50 times, accumulating a small synthesized dataset that was all used to train the best LoRa in their batch. This collection of synthesized data would be used to fine-tune the base model, completing one full iteration.
But what about model collapse?
This research basically demonstrated that by using a LoRa to iteratively simulate the synthetic data's effects is more effective than simply learning from its own synthetic data without any rejection sampling. As shown in their experiments, it took just 2 iterations for Qwen 2.57b to outperform GPT 4.1 that is fine-tuned only on the synthesized passages without the rejection sampling, while achieving a 14% improvement over the baseline. I mean, you could argue that writing and training on the synthesized data derived from the training data is just more roundabout way to train on the benchmark, but it is important to clarify that the model never actually sees the correct answers from the training data and is evaluated on completely separate test data. So yeah, maybe it's training indirectly, but on the other hand, this framework can also incorporate more self-edits. For the ARC benchmark, which contains puzzle-style abstract reasoning tasks, the researchers added options for the self-edit process to activate data augmentation tools such as rotations, flips, and color swaps. These available augmentations together with a self-proposed learning rate enabled a tiny 1B base model to leap from 0% accuracy using in-context learning to 72.5% after just 2 iterations. Well, the handcrafted test time training baseline still reached 100% accuracy, but this is nevertheless an impressive automated improvement. So yeah, this is the basic logic behind the self-adapting LM called SEAL.
What the fuck did you do? If I wanted anything other than entirely full screen, I would have chosen to do that, YouTube. I don't need you making changes on the fly.
I am not gonna lie, this is probably one of the coolest attempts yet at building an automated synthetic data pipeline to have a model improve itself. And to finally answer the question that everyone is here for, how practical can this self-data generating process be? So after 2 or 3 iterations, the performance usually plateaus. That happens not because SEAL can't write useful data, but because each new self-edit becomes less informative, as the self-edits are all technically drawn from the same benchmark, so the novelty drops pretty fast. Catastrophic forgetting would also creep in after a few iterations of self-edits where the model would forget old things faster than it learns, as the updates are done sequentially so the new updates interfere destructively with past learning. And of course, time and money are additional bottlenecks too. Want to fine-tune 15 LoRa's just to test performance? Whoop, that would be 6 hours on 2 H100s. Not to mention how the entire SEAL setup is scaffolded by humans. For example, adding tools and augmentations are still technically human heuristics, which makes this harder to scale. Aside from all that, we still need labeled data for the model to properly reward the correct outcomes, and the reward making part is also a tricky one. The reason why next token prediction got so good and scaled so well is that obtaining ground truth is incredibly easy. You simply calculate the loss for the next token. But when you move to meta learning, you basically cross into RL territory. This is because SEAL's goal is no longer simply calculating the loss for the next token, even though it still does that, but what it is actually doing is to maximize reward over time through exploration. So how the feedback signal is constructed for the model and how much of the model can interact freely with the environment determines how good the results will be. So we can put as many benchmarks for SEAL as we want, but it'll still technically be saturated within those benchmarks as it'll only learn from an environment with an evaluative signal. So this is the reason why I call this the benchmark Maxer 3000, as the direction so far for self-generating data would basically be indirectly learning from benchmarks. But don't get me wrong, RL is probably going to get us very far in terms of capabilities and use cases. After all, GPT-10's base model would probably need to be trained with a benchmark Maxer 3000, and the AI bros will probably tweet something like "fill the AGI" so OpenAI can raise another 10 trillion. But realistically, we need a better way to figure out how to create an environment and a reward system that requires minimal human heuristics. Well, that is if we are serious about meta learning, because all the amazing RL cases so far, like AlphaGo or Dota 2, are all achieved under a heavily constrained environment. So unless we find a way to have these two work autonomously, then maybe our best bet for an AI that can self-improve infinitely is when we figure out how to make a perpetual machine. And as always, if you like this type of AI research review, you should definitely check out my newsletter where I cover the latest and the most cutting-edge AI research weekly. On it, you'll be up to date on the cool new AI research ideas that researchers around the world publish, so if that's your cup of tea,
Okay, so the general consensus around
Chris Ledoux,
Deegan, the general consensus around the self-improving AI is it doesn't actually appear to be like not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but that it doesn't appear to work like at scale. So it could be good for some types of small AI, but not broadly across the entire gamut.
For Zaviasa, Louis Muck, Ben Shaner, Marcelo Ferraria, Zane Sheep, Poof and Inu, DX Research Group, and many others that support me through Patreon or YouTube. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
Welcome.
Speaking of feeling the AGI, Microsoft is feeling the AGI.
Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition, all the daily AI news you need in around 5 minutes. Today is one of those days when almost every story in the headlines could actually be the centerpiece of a full episode.
Well, there's been a couple of papers, Chef. There's one from Sakana, which is a Japanese lab, which they are indicating has self-improvement. And there was another one from another lab that the name who did it escapes me. But same kind of thing. Like they are indicating that they are capable of doing some kind of self-improvement. But it's not at the level that it needs to be. It's not proven. It's not there yet. But it might be. Like these could be the first steps. We'll find out in another 6 months.
So we will rip through these, but I would not be surprised if we come back to some of these themes later in the week or next week as well. We kick off today with progress in the negotiation between OpenAI and Microsoft, where it appears that continued access to OpenAI's technology has been the key topic. Now, the two firms, for background, have been locked in a lengthy negotiation around OpenAI's plans to convert to a for-profit company. Last month, it seemed like we were getting near daily updates on how the talks were going, and it sounded like they were not going well. OpenAI were leaking that they were considering making an antitrust complaint, while Microsoft's position seemed to be that they held all the cards and were content to just run out the clock until the end of the year. That could force OpenAI to lose out on about $20 billion in funding that was contingent on the conversion.
What's in it, Pharaoh? Like, that sounds terrifying.
Now, however, it appears that cooler heads have prevailed and a deal is getting close. Bloomberg reports that the companies are in advanced talks to land a deal that would see Microsoft retain access to OpenAI's technology even if AGI is achieved. This is one of the weirdest parts of this deal, and everyone has commented on it, so we don't have to dwell on it too long.
And I'm just saying, like, Microsoft's Windows is more encroaching on my free disk space than Call of Duty, you know? Like, it's, or at the very least, it's comparable. That was the thing that I hated about Call of Duty. Like, you know, I play with my friends and it was fun, whatever. But it was every time they would do an update, it would just get bigger and bigger and eat more and more of my friggin', you know, my hard drive space. And it's like, dudes, fucking relax.
But basically, under the current deal they had, Microsoft was cut off from OpenAI's models once they reached some ill-defined state of AGI. What's crazier than that is that OpenAI's board had sole discretion to determine what counts as AGI.
And what's really wild is that Microsoft signed that contract, that there was this ill-defined AGI, and that OpenAI gets to decide when they've hit AGI, and Microsoft, yeah, let's sign this bad boy. This is wild.
Now, Microsoft maybe thought that A, this was way far in the future, and B, they had partners at OpenAI's board who they could deal with rationally, meaning they weren't all that concerned about it when those deals were signed. But then, of course, the absolute utter fricassee around Sam Altman's firing, then rehiring happened. And ever since then, Microsoft has, I believe, basically felt a responsibility to distance themselves from the potential for quackery happening based on that particular term. It should be noted that without an AGI declaration, the deal is set to expire in 2030. But in any case, it appears that that has become less of a stumbling block. Sources say that CEO Satya Nadella and Sam Altman discussed the restructuring personally at the Sun Valley Conference in Idaho earlier this month, describing the tone of the talks as positive, but with the caution that they could still hit a roadblock. The current reporting suggests that the companies are converging on an agreement to get rid of the subjective definition of AGI and substitute a revenue-based metric instead. Under these updated terms, it would be something like
I play Crusader Kings 3, and I have reached a point in the game where, and I'm not gonna lie, my system is good enough to stream. What up, Ben? My system is good enough to stream, right, and play some games decently, right? It plays Space Marine 2 just fine, but at this point in time, I have a good portion of the map under my control, and it chugs. It absolutely chugs. It's like pausing every, I don't know, 20 seconds. We've almost reached the point where I'm just gonna, I just wanted to get to the end. But I'm gonna probably have to bag on it. Yeah, I think that already it's possible, Pharaoh, that the update you're talking about is one I got a week or two ago. Because I had to delete a bunch of stuff to make a bunch of fucking room. And,
like AGI being defined as a technology that can deliver $100 billion in total profits for Microsoft and other investors, effectively paying them out for profit-sharing agreements. Sources noted.
Nice. One of the people that I could declare war on is the Papal State, and I've considered it. But I'm trying to be cool, man. I'm trying to be cool. I've gone up against the Mongols. I've fought back the Mongols on multiple occasions. And for some reason, usually the Mongol Empire breaks up after Genghis Khan dies, but no, we're on the third Khanate, and the Mongol Empire is still all together and has suffered military defeats, and they're there. It's a whole thing.
That another term prevents Microsoft from pursuing AGI themselves, and while it's not clear that Microsoft is looking to spin up a superintelligence team, the reporting does suggest that this has been a topic of discussion during the negotiations as well. Obviously, markets are rooting for this deal to get done. Goldman Sachs analyst Kash Rangan said, if a deal were to be signed, it would take away a hurdle, at least from the investor's perspective. Both parties have so much to gain from this. Moving over to funding news, Anthropic's rumored valuation just keeps moving up as their latest round gets ready to close. Over the past month, we heard rumors that Anthropic were fielding investment offers at $100 billion, which increased to $150 billion last week. And now Bloomberg reports the number is $170 billion, and the company is, in their words, nearing a deal. Iconic Capital is reportedly leading the round, which is expected to raise between $3 and $5 billion. The source said that Anthropic has also been in discussions with the Qatar Investment Authority and Singapore's Sovereign Wealth Fund, which add to the rumors that Abu Dhabi's MGX is looking to invest as well. Now, holding aside who this money is coming from, they're basically at a place where sovereign wealth funds are kind of the only game in town with that sort of capital. What's more interesting is that the valuation definitely suggests that Anthropic is closing the gap with rivals. OpenAI's latest round, for example, put them at a $300 billion valuation.
But remember, all these people, Singapore's sovereign fund, Qatar investment authority, Abu Dhabi, all these countries, all these governments, China, right? They're all fooled. They're all fooled by the lie that is AI, right? The bubble that Sam Altman has tricked everyone into believing. None of it is true. None of it is real. Yes, Chef, absolutely. Like, everyone is, because we don't have a shared definition of a term like AGI, like, it'll just be whatever they want to do and not like really comparable. The only real measure is of capability. How many jobs can you replace with this current quality of AI and the future quality of AI? And that is the thing to pay attention to. Because the more jobs they can replace, the more jobs they will replace. And the closer to some sort of hinge point in history we're coming to.
And Elon Musk was reportedly looking for a $200 billion valuation for XAI. But what's more impressive than the jump in valuation is the fact that it actually has a very specific reasoning that isn't just AI hype markets excited. Anthropic started the year at around 1 billion ARR. It took them a few months to get up to 3 billion ARR, and then it took them 1 month to get to 4 billion ARR, and another month to get to 5 billion ARR. In other words, revenue is absolutely surging right now. In fact, reports suggest that Anthropic is seeing revenue getting all the way.
Yo, Ed Zitron, where you at? This is what you wanted to see, right? You said that it wasn't making any money. They weren't getting revenues. Now what, homie? Now what?
Up to 9 billion by year's end, which is just a phenomenally fast rate of growth. SemiAnalysis' AJ Karabi writes, Anthro's API revenue has overtaken OpenAI's. And once I internalized that and its implications, I joined their ranks in believing code is the only thing that matters. Meanwhile, over in OpenAI land, the company continues to experiment not just with new models, although everyone is just frantically sitting here tapping our fingers waiting for GPT-5 at this point, but also new dedicated versions of their tools and specific agents focused on particular use cases. For example, the company has just released study mode for ChatGPT. In an announcement blog, they describe the feature as a learning experience that helps you work through problems step by step instead of just getting an answer. Essentially, the model will give students hints and nudges to reason out their own solution to a problem rather than just giving the answer. Anthropic.
What's hilarious, Chef, is what up, X1011? What's hilarious, Chef, is that again the aforementioned Ed Zitron said that the VC money is drying up. Right, like there's no more VC money for the AI, and yet reality seems to reject the Ed Zitron view of the world.
Released a similar study mode for Claude in April, but for everyday high schoolers, obviously ChatGPT is by far their most used product. Study after study reports that ChatGPT usage in schools is somewhere north of 80%, which, to use a joke I've used before here, and apologies, I am a dad after all, means that about 20% of people are lying. Now, OpenAI said that their study mode feature was developed with education experts to reflect behaviors that promote deeper learning. That includes, in their words, encouraging active participation, managing cognitive load, proactively developing metacognition and self-reflection, fostering curiosity, and providing actionable and supportive feedback. Now, I think that there is a lot here that's interesting. There is a societal question, an education question, also a competitive question. A lot of AI for education companies are now wondering what their future holds. But like I said, basically every news item in today's headlines could be its own episode, and we've still got a couple more to come.
So there's a couple of pieces of, comic book literature that I have read or am currently reading that involve the teacher bot, right? Like that's a trope, basically, right? Like that kind of thing. I'm actually I could be kind of enthused, especially if you combined the voice mode, right? The ability to talk about maybe I did. Alt Miss Frizzle. How you doing, homie? The ability to talk as opposed to type with my thumbs to the AI and learn stuff. I would enjoy that. And is this me talking shit about Ed Zitron? My nemesis who doesn't even know me?
It took them a few months to get up to 3 billion ARR, and then it took them 1 month to get to 4 billion ARR, and another month to get to 5 billion ARR. In other words, revenue is absolutely surging right now. In fact, reports suggest that Anthropic is seeing revenue getting all the way.
Unrelated, but this shirt looks like a fantastic shade of blue right there. Like, I like that blue. It matches the logo. What's your new role, Miss Frizzle? And I'm feeling a little bit of a soupçon of sarcasm. Yo, Ed Zitron, where you at? This is what you wanted to see, right? You said that it wasn't making any money. They weren't getting revenues. Now what, homie? Now what?
Cover. For example, we have an update from Notebook LM. The latest new feature is called Video Overviews. And this is super interesting.
Hey, no, I'm a fan, Pharaoh. Like, I think it looks good. Now I'm hoping I'll end up in the algorithm for people who search Ed Zitron on the light of my screen. No, it's definitely like, and it's probably the resolution of this monitor versus or this TV versus this TV, and this one has better. Also
in the context of that educational use case, although that of course is not the only use case. Google writes, you can think of these as a visual alternative to audio overviews. The AI host creates new visuals to help illustrate points while also pulling in images, diagrams, quotes, and numbers from your documents. This makes it uniquely effective for explaining data,
Also, when I was at the interview for the new job, and I brought up AI and whatnot, apparently that company just got subscriptions for Notebook LM, whatever that means, for the entire company. So I'm the biology department lead at my same school. Some of us are vibing, some of us it's always going to happen, right? Like, well, it's again, they just added a bunch of features, Miss Frizzle. You're always going to run into people who think it should have been them, people who didn't like you and like that. There's, tease what it is, as the kids say. I hope that it works out well for you, because I know you as a wonderful human being, and I expect you, to do your best to do the best for others in that position.
Illustrating processes and making abstract concepts more tangible. Similar to audio overviews, you can tune the video output to match a particular knowledge level or target audience. That means you can use the same source material to generate a slideshow suitable for children or grad students. I'm actually thinking about a way to potentially use this to explain the idea of the bitter lesson and maybe what it means for enterprises in an LRS episode coming up at some point in the future. Alongside the video feature, Notebook LM also has a number of quality of life improvements. Users can now generate more than one overview, mind map, or study guide per notebook, and they can also explore more than one output at once. For example, listening to an audio overview while also perusing the mind map. Lastly, today we'll close on a meta story for that sweet synergy with our main episode. The company is now planning to allow AI during the interview process to better reflect the real world. Wired viewed a memo from earlier this month in which Meta called for mock candidates to test a new style of interview. The memo said, Meta is developing a new type of coding interview in which candidates have access to an AI assistant. This is more representative of the developer environment that our future employees will work in, and also makes LLM-based cheating less effective. Now, there's been a ton of reporting on this topic recently, suggesting that some of even the leading AI firms can't figure out how to deal with AI use in job interviews. Earlier this month, Anthropic released somewhat mixed guidance that they were looking for candidates who excel at collaborating with AI, while also advising candidates that they shouldn't actually collaborate with AI during the coding assessments. A Meta spokesperson said, "We're obviously focused on using AI to help engineers with their day-to-day work, so it should be no surprise that we're testing how to provide these tools to applicants during."
I mean, that has been a thing, obviously, a phrase that people have used for quite some time, but I think it's a handy shorthand that you don't have to actually identify what it is that you're changing, right? It's just a quality of life improvement. You know what I mean?
Interviews. Now, honestly, there are probably a lot of ways to do this poorly, but some version of this was...
And a lot of times when an app does a quality of life improvement, it decreases the quality of life that I have using the app. Sometimes just because now I have to learn to do a thing in a different way, but sometimes because it completely took away my ability to do the thing I was doing with the app. Which again, right? Like, what was funny, for longtime viewers, I used to have all my content up on Twitch as a highlight, right? I would finish an episode, it would go into the VOD, and then I would highlight the entire VOD, right? So you could go back and see it, right? Like I had everything I ever said was there, right? Clip me out of context, it's in the VOD, right? Like I got everything I said was there. Everyone can hold me to stuff that I said. Now I'm doing that with YouTube, but I've talked about that, and someone said, well, that's not the right way to use that. And I don't care. You just, you should be exploiting every single nook and cranny that exists within any piece of software or app and use it in whatever way you see fit, because this is capitalism and you should be survival of the fittesting against the corporations. That's just how it should be. Just don't depend it on being there. Like, they might remove it, they might change it. You have to be able to adapt to that situation. But if something works for you, then you should be doing it. Speaking of that, I was going to ask, how is the S25 compared to this is the huge improvement. Now it's also an S25 Ultra versus an S23 base model piece of shit. But all that being beside the point, this is a significantly superior experience. I think I wanted Notebook LM to be more generative, just using the things I uploaded into the notes. So basically, like uploading an entire learning standard breakdown, use it to construct a lesson solely using what I upload. Again, there were some updates, like he was talking about how it can now do slides, right? Like in that PowerPoint kind of sense. So they might have gotten to what you wanted it to do. What I recommend with all the AI tools is just check back on them every now and again, because you never know. Went from Google Pixel to Samsung A26. Yeah, I mean, call screening is a huge deal, especially in the now. Just don't answer any calls. That works.
Completely inevitable. I've talked before on this show about how we've had Employees of Superintelligent in the past, developers, who we had to let go because they just would not adapt to the new world of agentic coding assistants. Which is not to say, of course, that those things are a cure-all or...
Oh, that sucks, Rick. Is it fixable broken or have to start over from the beginning broken?
perfect or should be used for every different use case when it comes to coding. But it is so clearly a relevant skill set to be able to know how to navigate and get the most from that set of tools that they have to be incorporated in the application process in some way. One person doing a victory lap around this was, of course, Cluely CEO Roy Lee, whose entire company is premised on the idea that in a few years, things we consider cheating now will be just totally de rigueur. He posted the scoop of the announcement and said simply, "You're welcome, everyone." With that, though, let's move over to our main episode, which is still in the meta world, but a very different thing. Zuckerberg has laid out a vision.
All right, folks. It's been about 3 hours. I got stuff to do. I will be back tomorrow. I might be back at noon tomorrow, but at the latest, I'll be back at 1. I'm going to raid you out. Please stick around for the raid. You know how this works. You've been here long enough, etc., etc. Yeah, give it a try, Miss Frizzle, and by all means, let me know if you'd be so kind. I can't know all the things, so we try to help each other. Oh, did you stop streaming? You suck. I wanted you to keep streaming so that I could raid into you. You suck. Near. All right, we're gonna raid over here. Again, stick around for the raid, even if you got someplace else you would rather be. I raid only the best people on Twitch, and they're all fantastic. And I tend towards people who are original and creative and trying something different, which often comes with, less than huge amounts of viewers and everything else. So if you really want to see new and original content on the platform, you should absolutely be following everyone that I send you to, because I said so. Do you, boo? In the meantime, before I see you tomorrow, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember, Shuggy loves you. So do I. Be great.